Chapter 774. Yang Dingtian, Dongli has failed. This was the first thing Queen Hai Xian said when she saw Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian immediately revealed an inquisitive gaze. He did not say anything, nor did he say why Dongli had failed. The power of the darkness immortal flame can make our hearts throb, but it is not enough to make us fall in love, Hai Xian said. So, you may be the only human who can make the snake men fall in love. Yang Dingtian? Maybe not. Back then, the soul-leaving palace had successfully impregnated Queen Poisa without any intimate contact. Yang Dingtian, who was a rare commodity worth hoarding, did not reveal any special expression. He still looked at her calmly. So let's talk, okay? Queen Hai Xian said. Yang Dingtian said, please speak. Queen Hai Xian said, my Snakemen Empire will fully support you against the evil ways and help you win the battle of world destruction. You will help me give birth to the next generation of the Snakemen race and let the Snakemen Empire pass on. Yang Dingtian thought about it. He did not refuse or agree. He said, then what are the specifics? Queen Hai Xian said, of course we have to talk about it one by one. First, you have now unified the entire human countries, except for the Vulture Palace and the Sea of Hades. All the experts of my Snakemen Empire will move out and work with you to get rid of Wolingzi of the Vulture Palace. This way, you can completely unify the human countries. Yang Dingtian said, then what should I pay in return? Queen Hai Xian said, give Dugo Aoshuang to me. Yang Dingtian's face suddenly twitched. Queen Hai Xian's first sentence had directly pierced Yang Dingtian's reverse scale. Yang Dingtian said, then it seems that we do not need to talk anymore. Queen Hai Xian said, I only asked you to hand Dugo Aoshuang over to me. I didn't say I was going to kill her. After all, she is my sister's flesh and blood. Although she is a failure, I feel that it might be better for her to be by my side. In exchange, you've unified the entire human nation. I think this is a very good deal for you. Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, Your Majesty, you should know that I never trade with people. No matter if it's Dugu Aoshuang or someone else who's even more insignificant. Queen Hai Xian looked at Yang Dingtian with lingering interest, then sneered. Then you don't want to hear the second one? Yang Dingtian. You can listen, but don't have any illusions. Queen Hai Xian smiled and said, the second condition is that I will borrow your child. In return, I will help you seal the entrance to the human gate in the Skull Hall. Only in this way, the demon fox race in the Little Western Paradise will not easily enter the human nation. You also know that before you break through to the half-sage level, you can't seal this door. This door belongs to the Netherworld Sea. If you and I work together, we can seal it. What if I refuse? Yang Dingtian said. Queen Hai Xian stretched out her hand and pressed Yang Dingtian's lips, saying, don't refuse so quickly. I'm afraid that I won't be able to control myself and will hurt you. Then, Queen Hai Xian slowly stood up and said, I know that it's very difficult to make someone submit with empty words. I need to exert a certain amount of pressure, so I'll give you time. If I exert too much pressure on you during this time, please forgive me. Then, Hai Xian gently bent down and kissed Yang Dingtian's lips. In an instant, her entire body trembled. Her heart was in a daze, and a flame ignited in the depths of her heart. It was so easy for her to fall in love with him. She didn't even need to do anything. Baby, I'll wait for your reply. Hai Xian gently pinched Yang Dingtian's lips, then turned and walked out. After Queen Hai Xian left, Yang Dingtian sat down. She knew that Hai Xian's first condition was the prerequisite for all the conditions. Although she definitely didn't know that Ao Shuang had become Naga. However, Ao Shuang was the only bloodline of Queen Poisa. She was determined to get it. Moreover, she had always been worried that one day, Ao Shuang would transform into Naga. In that case she, Hai Xian, would be dead. Another thing was that Queen Hai Xian was actually testing to see if Ao Shuang had transformed. If Yang Dingtian's reaction was very intense, it meant that he might have already transformed. And if Yang Dingtian's reaction was calm, it meant that he might not have transformed yet. Therefore, Yang Dingtian said that he would absolutely not trade with anyone. Furthermore, Hai Xian had never thought that she would be able to succeed in her negotiations. It was just an opening, a warning. Next, she might have a lot of measures to force Yang Dingtian to compromise. Yang Dingtian didn't know what this woman's cultivation was like now. But no matter what, the matter of eliminating her had to be included in the plan as soon as possible. It would be best if he could kill her before the apocalyptic war began. He had to deal with the Snakeman Empire. Otherwise, the human countries would have to face 2 battles. As for the second condition, it didn't seem important right now. But it was extremely important. The door to the human kingdom that sealed the Great Hall of Heads. This point would become extremely important when the Doomsday War began. There were simply too many saint-level and half-step saint-level experts in Little Western Paradise. Moreover, Yongxi now controlled almost the entire Little Western Paradise. If the apocalyptic war began, and the apocalyptic army was at a disadvantage, the masters of the Foxman clan in Little Western Paradise would come out in full force. It would be a disaster for the human countries. Now this door was still under the control of the Netherworld Sea. Of course, there was also good news. The masters of the Fox clan in Little Western Paradise couldn't stay in the human countries for a long time. Otherwise, their cultivation would drop rapidly. Therefore, before the apocalyptic war began, the masters of Little Western Paradise would definitely not enter the human countries on a large scale. Before that, he would eliminate the forces of the Netherworld Sea and the Vulture Palace, completely unify the human countries, and eliminate all the guides. Then, he would be able to seal the masters of the Fox clan in Little Western Paradise in Little Western Paradise. Also, although Wu Yu proposed to help kill Wolingzi, Yang Dingtian was slightly tempted by this proposal. But soon he gave up on this idea. Because of that sentence, there was no such thing as a free lunch. Even if there was a free lunch, it would be poisonous. No matter what, he had to rely on himself. If he wanted to get rid of Wolingzi and control the Vulture Palace, there was only one way, and that was to break through to the half-saint realm. Dongli secretly met with Wu Yu and Yingdu. I failed, Dongli said. I can see that, Wu Yu said. Eternal dwelling heaven was behind the wall. The Naga Empire can't fall into Yang Dingtian's hands. I want to kill Yang Dingtian, Dongli said. No, Wu Yu said. Dongli said, why not? The order to not kill Yang Dingtian was lifted nearly a year ago. Wu Yu said, now that things have changed again, no. Dongli said angrily, give me a reason. Wu Yu said, His Majesty the Demon King needs Yang Dingtian to challenge the God of Chaos. Dongli sneered. He's the enemy, why would we need him? Wu Yu said, you've already failed. Now, only Yang Dingtian can give birth to a half-god descendant. Do you think we can fight against the God of Chaos with our current strength? Impossible. Dongli was full of unwillingness. After a long silence he said, anyway, my mission is over. I can't let the Naga race reproduce anymore. Now give me the first-class evil spirit that belongs to me. I want to break through to the half-saint realm. I've been a 9th grade martial grandmaster for many years. I've had enough. Wu Yu said, you want to kill Yang Dingtian after breaking through to the half-saint realm? Dongli said, I didn't say that. Wu Yu said, you have to remember, after you give the evil spirit, you won't be able to kill Yang Dingtian. Because at that time, you won't even have your own will. Dongli said, then why is Yu Ming still so carefree and has his own will? Wu Yu said, that's because the first-class evil spirit hasn't suppressed his will, unlike Dongfang Bingling. Dongli said, is the first-class evil spirit going to suppress my will? Wu Yu said, yes, because you want to kill Yang Dingtian. Your will be suppressed. Dongli's face suddenly twitched, and he said, then what do you want me to do? Give me the first-class evil spirit? Wu Yu said, when you can think about the overall situation of His Majesty Demon King, we'll give you the first-class evil spirit, and give you a new mission. Moreover, this mission can be completed with your ability. What mission? I can do it now. Dongli said. Wu Yu said, no, wait until your heart calms down. You're used to being arrogant in the human countries. For the time being, you should stay in Little Western Paradise and feel how small you are. Then Wu Yu waved and said, you can leave. Dongli left indignantly. Wu Yu walked into the room and gently leaned on Yongxi Wentian's body, saying softly, Dongli is far inferior to Yu Ming. Yongxi Wentian stroked Wu Yu's hair and said softly, yes, although Yu Ming is disobedient, he's the kind of child that makes his parents feel more sorry for him. Wu Yu said, when are you going to let the evil spirit suppress Yu Ming's will? Yongxi Wentian shook his head. I don't know, this matter is not entirely up to me. You also know that he's the boss of Earth. Wu Yu laughed. You're clearly much smarter than him, and he's obviously very frivolous, so why do you still listen to him? Yongxi Wentian laughed. Qin Wancho Wu Maji, which one of them isn't smarter than Yang Dingtian? Why do you all listen to Yang Dingtian? Don't you also like that Wentian? Wu Yu smiled. How can that be? I only like Wentian, okay? I really hate the way you guys are acting. Yongxi Wentian laughed. It's not just hate, right? The one on Earth wouldn't be so gentle to you. Wu Yu sighed. He's not gentle, but he's very real. You're very gentle, but you're very fake. Yongxi Wentian fell silent. After a long time he said, Wu Yu, if one day we need you to sacrifice yourself, will you do it? Wu Yu trembled. Just like a few hundred years ago, when Yongxi sent me to the human race to borrow their seed? Yongxi Wentian said, more or less. Wu Yu said, that Wentian of Earth definitely won't do that. Yongxi Wentian said, yes, he won't do that, but I will. Will you agree? Wu Yu's tears fell, but a smile appeared on her face. Of course, as long as you say it, I will agree. However, maybe I'll fall in love with someone else like a few hundred years ago. At that time, you'll be accompanying your wife and losing your soldiers. Yongxi Wentian's eyes were filled with unwillingness. So, unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't let you go. However, if it's really necessary, I'll have to do it. Wu Yu said, that shouldn't be the case, right? The child born of Yang Dingtian, and Yarao is obviously a descendant of a demigod, right? Yongxi Wentian said, maybe, but that child is greatly influenced by his parents. His will is frighteningly firm, he won't listen to us. Wu Yu said, isn't there still Jia? She's also pregnant with Yang Dingtian's child. This child should listen to us. Yongxi Wentian said, let's hope that the pregnant Jia won't change her ambition. Her strong maternal love won't dilute her scheming. Then Yongxi Wentian said, if we still can't control Jia's child then maybe when the time comes, we'll really have to let you go. Wu Yu laid on Yongxi Wentian's leg and said softly, if you're not afraid of me falling in love with someone else, I'll go. At this time, Dongli was strolling around the Silver Palace, his heart filled with resentment. Why? Why couldn't he kill Yang Dingtian? This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was, why did he have to be treated differently from Netherworld? They were both the adopted sons of the Demon King. Why did he have to favor Netherworld? He was clearly an idiot who didn't even have a manly root. At this time, Dongli was not only filled with hatred for Yang Dingtian, but also for Wu Yu, Netherworld, and even Wentian. When he passed by a red leaf forest, he suddenly smelled an incomparably alluring woman's fragrance. At this time, a peerlessly beautiful figure stood under a red leaf tree. It was Jia. Because she was pregnant, she had become a little more plump, and her delicate figure became more mature and moving. Moreover, her originally beautiful face became even more breathtaking. Jia's current beauty had even surpassed Yarao. She was almost on par with Queen Hai Xian. Dongli tried his best to widen his eyes, but he could only see a faint silhouette. That's right, this pair of other people's eyes was gradually taking effect on him. Although he was still blind, he already had a basic reaction to light. At this time, Jia was caressing her lower abdomen, staring blankly at the fallen red leaves. Suddenly, she saw Dongli and said coldly, human, this isn't a place you should be. Dongli could tell that this woman was Jia. Moreover, she was also the woman Yang Dingtian had slept with in the little western paradise. Immediately, evil thoughts arose in his heart. He already had the darkness mystic flame. Although he couldn't arouse the Naga race, it didn't mean that he couldn't arouse the fox race. If he could make the demon fox race fall in love with him, then Yang Dingtian could just go and die. Suddenly, Dongli's handsome face revealed a devilish smile as he walked towards Jia. Chapter 775. Scram human. Jia said word by word. Dongli continued to step forward and slowly released the aura of the darkness mystic flame. After sensing the dark aura, Jia's heart suddenly skipped a beat. A blush appeared on her flawless face, and the temperature of her delicate body rose by a lot. Dongli immediately felt this and was immediately overjoyed. He continued to step forward and said, "Miss Jia, don't you want to give birth to a demigod descendant? I can give you this opportunity." "You?" Jia sneered. "Of course. You are already moved, aren't you?" Dongli walked to Jia's side and said with a smile, "It's just that your modesty is hindering you. Why not let your heart guide your will? I will give you an experience that you will never forget." Dongli's darkness mystic flame stimulated the females of the demon fox race more than the serpent men race. However, that was all. It was still far from being moved. When Dongli came closer, Jia's disgust for him even exceeded the special feeling brought by the darkness mystic flame. "Scram human," Jia said word by word. "I don't care who you are. What does it have to do with Chairman Yongxi? However, don't cause trouble for yourself. I'm not in a good mood." Dongli wouldn't have been so impatient to take such a risk. However, he had suffered a series of setbacks recently. He wanted to make a breakthrough in the demon fox race too much. Moreover, this Jia was Yang Dingtian's woman. In addition, the fragrance on her body made him lose his mind. "Ha ha ha, you will be grateful to me later." After saying that, Dongli pounced on her and was about to force himself on her. In his memory, Jia practiced art and not martial arts. Therefore, she should be powerless in front of Dongli. Although her father was the patriarch of the Shadow Spear clan. However, he believed that once a woman was occupied by him, she would be obedient to him, as if she had changed into another person. Dongli had seen too many examples of this. Jia frowned in disgust, and then disappeared in a flash. Dongli was startled and said with a smile, "Interesting. Your cultivation is not bad. Let's have some fun then." Then, Dongli used his upper body movement technique and pounced on Jia. Jia's figure flashed again and said coldly, "Human, you can do it once, twice, but not thrice. If you offend me for the third time, don't blame me for being impolite." Dongli smiled and said, "You're welcome. Good. I like it when women are rude to me. Women need to be strong, the stronger the better." Then, using his movement technique, he opened his arms and hugged Jia as fast as lightning. Jia's beautiful eyes turned cold. She covered her lower abdomen with one hand and struck out with her other palm. Her jade-like palm was delicate and beautiful, and it looked like she had no strength at all. Dongli didn't put her in his eyes at all and continued to pounce on her. Slap! Jia's palm suddenly struck Dongli's chest. A burst of heart-wrenching pain followed, and then, the profound veins in his entire body seemed to be torn apart inch by inch. Puff! A mouthful of blood violently sprayed out like a sharp arrow. Dongli's body flew dozens of meters away like a straw and fell to the ground heavily. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. This person was completely blinded by lust and anger at this time. He didn't know that Jia's cultivation was far beyond her sister's alluring heyday. At that time, Yang Dingtian was a 7-star 9th grade great-grandmaster. He was restrained by her until he couldn't move, and then she forced herself on him. If Dongli fought with all his strength, he could barely hold on. Underestimating the enemy like this was just courting death. In fact, Jia didn't want to fight because she knew the complexity of the Silver Palace and the bottomless shadow of eternal Shi. But Dongli forced her to do it. At this time, Wu Yu slowly came over. Jia slightly bowed and saluted him. Wu Yu glanced at Dongli lying on the ground and said to Jia, "I'm sorry, did I scare you?" "I'm fine, thank you, madam," Jia said. "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Wu Yu said, Take care of your body." Jia left the Red Leaves Forest and returned to her palace. Her days in the Silver Palace weren't as good as she imagined. It was more like another round of bitter cultivation. When Yao Qi was there, she was like a fish in water. Because Yao Qi had given her unparalleled trust, even if she wasn't Yao Qi's wife, she was still like half a master in the Silver Palace. And now, although both Eternal Shi and Wu Yu were very polite to her on the surface, But the entire Silver Palace seemed to be enveloped by an invisible net, making it difficult for her to breathe. Of course, there was also a sense of complete loneliness. She used to think that she enjoyed this feeling of loneliness. Growing up in the Shadow Spear clan's palace, although she and Yao Rao were sisters, their relationship wasn't good. She didn't want to be with Yao Rao, and often liked to be alone. So she used to think that she enjoyed being alone. But she found out that wasn't the case. Her so-called enjoyment of loneliness was relative and conditional. For example, it was loneliness in the Shadow Spear clan's palace, not true loneliness in the Silver Palace. Moreover, her idol Yao Qi was dead. As for her nominal husband, the husband who saw her as an enemy, he basically never came back. Right now, she was completely alone in the Silver Palace. She couldn't even go back to the Shadow Spear clan's palace, because her father, Yao Ru too, wanted to take back the political resources he invested in Yao Qi from his daughter. So if she went back to the Shadow Spear clan, it would mean that Yao Ru's efforts would go down the drain. She would also receive her father's cold eyes and anger, but she would persevere. She felt that she wouldn't lose to anyone. At the Radiance Parliament's headquarters in the central capital, Yang Dingtian had organized a small core meeting. Only a few people were participating. He reported the situation of Little Western Paradise to the core members present, which put a lot of pressure on the Council of Light. Many people had heard of Little Western Paradise. Even Dongfang Minmi and Qin Wanqiu had participated in the pursuit of Yao Rao. But they didn't expect Little Western Paradise to be such an advanced civilization. And the most terrifying thing was that this plane had already fallen into Wentian's hands. Yang Dingtian said, Wentian's plan has steps to follow. So far, half of his strategy has succeeded, and the other half has failed. He succeeded in controlling the Underworld Empire. He basically succeeded in controlling the Little Western Paradise. And he failed in controlling the Snakeman Empire. He also failed in controlling the human countries. Qin Wanqiu said, his failures are all small strategies. His big strategies have all succeeded. Yes, Yang Dingtian said. The failure of the Snakeman Empire and the human countries didn't affect Wentian much. It won't affect his strategy at all. Now we have to predict how many more steps Wentian has to take. How long until the world-ending war begins? This depends on what the Queen Devil Queen and Prince Li Ming are doing. Summoning the Legion of Doom and reviving the Demon King Wentian. Dongfang Minmi said. Yes, this is the most comprehensive answer. Yang Dingtian said. This is also the most logical answer. So there is one more question. Where are Li Ming and the Devil Queen? Can we interrupt their strategy? Dongfang Minmi said. According to Sect Master's speculation, I feel that the possibility of Wentian being in the ruins of the Naga Empire is very high. But it should be very difficult to interrupt their strategy, because both Li Ming and the Devil Queen are too strong. Qin Wanqiu suddenly said, Sect Master, because of your leadership, we are more prepared for this world-ending war than before. Our strength is unprecedentedly strong. So on the battlefield, I feel that we have a very high chance of victory. But on the martial Dao, we are very weak. Not to mention the Underworld Empire. Even the Naga Empire's martial Dao is far superior to ours. But I believe that you have a way to deal with the Naga Empire, right? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I have a plan for the Naga Empire. The key is that the Little Western Paradise's martial Dao is far superior to the Naga Empire. Once the Fox clan's experts enter the human countries in large numbers, it will be a disaster. Therefore, it was imperative to eliminate the Spirit Vulture Palace and the Sea of Nether. Only by eliminating these two forces can we fight for and seal the door to the human countries, preventing the experts of the Little Western Paradise from entering. Everyone fell into silence. To eliminate the Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea, one would need to be at least a half-saint, and not a low one. Currently, there was not a single half-saint in the entire Council of Light. The martial Dao strength of the human countries was too weak. Originally, there was Nihility Piaoling, but unfortunately, she had been demonized. Originally, there was Walingzi, but he was an enemy. So, it is urgent to improve the martial Dao level of the Council of Light on a large scale. Yang Dingtian said, I have a plan, which is to use the spiritual illusion of the taboo continent to improve the martial Tao level of the core forces of the Council of Light on a large scale. Yang Dingtian already had this plan in mind. The spiritual illusion of the taboo continent could greatly improve the martial Tao level of a warrior in a few months. But there was also a risk, which was that the people of the Little Western Paradise could enter and destroy at any time, including the people of the human countries. With Yang Dingtian's protection, he was not afraid of the experts below the half-saint level. But if the experts above the half-saint level came to destroy, it would be troublesome. And the key was that cultivating in the taboo continent would take a few months. Yang Dingtian's time was very precious, and it was difficult for him to guard for a long time. He had to break through to the half-saint level in the shortest time possible. The spiritual illusion of the taboo continent. Currently, I know the complete process from the first world to the fifth world. Yang Dingtian said. Dongfang Bingling once cultivated here for nearly 2 years, and broke through to the half-saint level in one fell swoop. Of course, we can't cultivate for such a long time. In fact, cultivating to the fourth world is the fastest and most effective way. So, I plan to let our people enter the spiritual illusion of the taboo continent in batches. The first batch I suggest is Wumaji, Dishibian and the others. The demon vulture King Azu is very experienced in the spiritual illusion of the taboo continent. It will be your mount for each batch of cultivation. Yes, husband, Wu Maji said, her beautiful eyes flashing with excitement. Dongfang Minmi said, but this kind of cultivation, the Little Western Paradise and the evil ways probably won't sit by and do nothing. Once it's destroyed, this kind of cultivation can't be carried out. Yes, it's impossible to guard against it, Yang Dingtian sighed. Even if the cultivation time is a few months, we can't hope that the enemy won't find out. Yang Dingtian thought deeply and said, in this case, Yongxi Wentian still doesn't know that I've seen through him. So, I'll enter the Little Western Paradise again, and directly ask for our people to enter the taboo continent to cultivate on a large scale. I hope they can understand. Then, I'll go to the Shadow Spear clan, and ask Yao Nu to help guard the door of the Fox clan. That's right, this method works. Now, Yongxi Wentian still thought that Yang Dingtian treated him as an ally, and he probably didn't care too much about the Council of Light's strength. Most importantly, Yao Nu too was Yang Dingtian's ally, and he wanted to push Jia to the position of chairman in the future. He could also guard the door of the Little Western Paradise. Then the key was the door of the human kingdom. It was conceivable that the Vulture Palace might not have the guts to destroy it. But the Naga Empire's Queen Hai Xen was worried that she couldn't find a chance to force Yang Dingtian to compromise, and would do her best to destroy it. In the entire human world, there was almost no one who could subdue Hai Xen. So the door of the human kingdom really couldn't be guarded. Suddenly, Wumaji's beautiful eyes lit up, and she said, husband, there's actually someone who can help guard the door of the human kingdom. Who? Yang Dingtian asked, but he immediately knew the answer after asking. That's right, a half-step sage expert, Wu Yuming. This isn't good. Yang Dingtian was speechless, letting the fifth in command of the evil ways protect the Council of Light. This seemed a little crazy no matter how he looked at it. Wu Maji said, actually, we only need to drag Ling Wu down with us. Let her follow us and cultivate in the Forbidden Continent's illusory realm. Wu Yuming won't refuse. Yang Dingtian was stunned. This was really a way. But why did it seem a little despicable? However, for the sake of the Council of Light's strength, this little despicable didn't matter. At this moment, Wu Yuming and Ling Wu should still be cultivating in the grassland of Dongli and hunting for an earth-level mystic flame. Therefore, the meeting decided. Next, the experts of the Council of Light immediately entered the Forbidden Continent's illusory realm to cultivate. They wanted to raise their cultivation as high as possible in the shortest time possible. Demon's Wrath too would guard the door of the Demon Fox clan, and Wu Yuming would help guard the door of the human kingdom. After the meeting ended, Yang Dingtian immediately rode on Demon Eagle King Aja, and together with Wu Maji, they headed to the grassland of Dongli to meet Wu Yuming and Ling Wu. Sai, The changes in the world were really too unpredictable. Before this, he would never have thought that he would actually seek cooperation with Wu Yuming one day. Chapter 776. Yang Dingtian, who entered the Little Western Paradise again, immediately transformed into the Speechless clan. Before going to Indu, he decided to visit the Shadow Spear clan first. Then, Demon Rage 2 told Yang Dingtian about Jiya's pregnancy with joy and a complicated expression. Yang Dingtian was shocked. On the other hand, Demon Rage 2 silently sat opposite him without moving at all. After a long while he suddenly said, "I went to the Silver Moon clan some time ago and met Yao Li." Yang Dingtian raised his head and looked at him. Demon Rage 2 said, "I am very curious about his seclusion. I believe that he must know a lot about Yao Qi's death and other things. So, I asked him why he retired. How did Yao Qi die?" Yang Dingtian asked. "What did he say?" Demon Rage 2 said, "He congratulated me for getting a son-in-law with deep feelings." Then, Demon Rage 2 raised his head and asked Yang Dingtian, "Mr. Jiangshang, what do you think he meant by that?" Yang Dingtian's mouth was dry. The meaning of Yao Li's words couldn't be clearer. A son-in-law with deep feelings. Demon Rage 2 knew clearly about the relationship between Jiangshang and Jiya. It wasn't good at all. For Yao Qi, Jiya had harmed Jiangshang many times. So this son-in-law was naturally Yao Rao's husband, Yang Dingtian. For Yao Rao and her son, he risked his life to come here. Yao Li's words were equivalent to telling Demon Rage 2 about Mr. Jiangshang's true identity. Demon Rage 2 said, "I asked him, how did Yao Qi die?" He said, "Let me ask you. Now let me ask you, how did Yao Qi die?" Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment, then answered, "Probably, he was killed by His Excellency Yongxi." Demon Rage 2 said, "Why did you kill him?" Yang Dingtian, "We have different political views. Yongxi thinks that Yao Qi will bring the entire Fox Demon clan to a dead end. She will destroy the Little Western Paradise and the entire world. I think Yao Qi will destroy the human world before destroying Little Western Paradise and the entire world." Yao Nu 2 said, "You also participated in the process of killing Yao Qi?" "Yes, but he saw through it," Yang Dingtian said. "I was also extremely shocked and surprised when he died. Of course, I'm happy to see him die, even though I admire Yao Qi a lot." Yao Nu 2's face was dark and uncertain. Was he resentful? Of course he was furious. The resources that he had spent on Yao Qi had turned into nothing. However, he was a realistic and rational person. Since things were already set in stone, he would look for the most advantageous aspect for himself. After a long silence, Monster Rage 2 said, "Mr. Jiangshang, I don't care who your real identity is, but in the Little Western Paradise in front of me, you can only be Jiangshang from the Speechless clan." "Of course," Yang Dingtian said. Yao Nu 2 said, "Also the political deal between me and Yongxi cannot be changed. Whether it's you or Yongxi, you can't change it. If anyone wants to change this, my allies and I will immediately form an alliance with the Silver Moon clan and overthrow the Indu Council." "Of course," Yang Dingtian said. Yao Nu 2 said, "Also, the son that Jia gave birth to can only stay in Little Western Paradise." Yang Dingtian was silent for a long time. He was not prepared for this at all. He had always thought that Jia would avoid pregnancy because she did not like him. Her pregnancy was really an extreme accident. At present, Yang Dingtian could not take the child away from Jia. Yao Nu 2 said, "Now can you tell me why you're looking for me?" Yang Dingtian said, "A few of my men are going to enter the Forbidden Continent's illusion realm to cultivate for a few months. Therefore, I wish to close the silver door in the Skull Hall and not allow any demon fox race to enter the hall." Yao Nu 2 narrowed his eyes and said, "You want me to send people to guard the silver door? You should know that the high-level fox demons are very unwilling to enter the human countries because their cultivation will constantly weaken. So, Yao Li and Yao Qi were forced to go to the human countries. So, even if they don't guard it, there might not be a single fox demon entering the human countries for a few years." Yang Dingtian said, "Guard it. There will be benefits in the end." Yao Nutu nodded at Yang Dingtian and said, "Now you and I are allies, right?" Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "We're father and son-in-law, and we have a grandson. It can't be changed." Yao Nutu nodded and said, "All right, I agree. And let me tell you, I don't care about anything else. Even if the human countries are completely destroyed in the Great Doomsday War, I don't care. I only care about one thing. 100 years, or 200 years later, my daughter Jia will sit on the chair of the Little Western Paradise. I don't care about the matters of the cats and dogs in the human countries." "Understood," Yang Dingtian said. After bidding farewell to Yao Nutu, Yang Dingtian went to Indu to meet Yongxi. This matter seemed ridiculous. Evil ways were Yongxi Wentian's. But Yang Dingtian asked for help to let the Council of Light cultivate in the Forbidden Continent to increase their cultivation. One must know that after the Council of Light's core cultivators increased their cultivation, they would fight evil ways. But Yang Dingtian bet that Yongxi Wentian wouldn't care about the Council of Light's cultivation at all. The current Wentian was in charge of many planes. He didn't care about the Council of Light at all. In fact, the higher the cultivation of the Council of Light's higher-ups, the higher the number of high-level undead in the Underworld Empire after they died in battle. Moreover, Yang Dingtian asked for his help. This made Yongxi feel that Yang Dingtian didn't suspect his identity. He came to the Silver Palace again. Yongxi was still sitting in his wheelchair. Yang Dingtian pushed him around the garden. "You left for more than a month. I thought you wouldn't come back." Yongxi smiled. "Originally, I didn't plan to come back," Yang Dingtian said. "But there's something I need your help with." "What is it?" Yongxi asked. Yang Dingtian said, "You also know that I cultivated in the Forbidden Continent for a few months. My cultivation increased very quickly. So, I want to let the Council of Light's higher-ups cultivate there and increase their cultivation." Yongxi smiled and said, "That's a good thing. I agree. But you also know that I don't have enough control over the experts of the Fox clan. So, I suggest you ask for experts from Monster's Wrath too to guard the entrance." Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "I think so too." Yongxi said, "Will it take long?" Yang Dingtian said, "It shouldn't take more than half a year." "Yes," Yongxi replied. "By the way, do you know about Jia's pregnancy?" Yang Dingtian said bitterly, "I know." Yongxi said, "Then go and see her." Yang Dingtian sighed and said, "This is really unexpected for me." Yongxi smiled and said, Go and see her." Yang Dingtian pushed Yongxi back to the palace. After Yang Dingtian left, Wuyu entered Yongxi's room. "It's strange that Yang Dingtian came back at this time," Wuyu said. Yongxi said, "He wants the upper echelons of the Council of Light to cultivate in the illusion of the taboo continent. He wants the Fox clan to seal the Silver Gate and not let anyone enter the Skull Hall." Wuyu said, "Did you agree?" Yongxi said, "Yes, half a year. Do you need to go to the human countries in half a year?" Wuyu said, "With Mu Dan in the human countries, you don't need me. It's better for me to stay here and help you. Furthermore, haven't we already decided that we will not touch Yang Dingtian and the Radiance Parliament before the World Extermination War? We will wait for the World Extermination War to start." Yongxi said, "Yes, the upper echelons of the Council of Light have become stronger. It's equivalent to the Underworld Empire, having a few more powerful undead. It's not worth mentioning." Wuyu sneered and said, "If Yang Dingtian were to know that he had worked so hard for the World Extermination War. But he didn't know that we had already disregarded the World Extermination War and his Heaven Dao Union's army." Yongxi said, "He can't be underestimated. I can feel that when he saw me just now, he was already suspicious and afraid of me." Wuyu said, "Do we need to use a psychic to probe his brain?" Yongxi said, "Not for now, so as not to alert the enemy." Yongxi said, "It won't change anything anyway. Besides, I'm in charge of the Little Western Paradise. I have to make sure that he's a fresh stallion that can breed many demigod descendants." Wuyu suddenly said, "Oh right, Jia has seen that Scourge Dongli. If she tells Yang Dingtian might see through you." Yongxi said, "Don't worry, she won't tell, and she can't tell." As for Dongli, he's been imprisoned. Let him stay in the dungeon for half a year, to clear his head. Inside Jia's office, the first thing Yang Dingtian saw when he saw her was her belly, which hadn't bulged yet. However, her entire body had become a little more plump. Her originally statue-like beauty now had a hint of femininity to it. Jia was surprised to see Yang Dingtian suddenly appear in front of her. When did you get pregnant? Yang Dingtian asked. Jia said after a moment of silence. When I reminded you that you fell into Yao Qi's trap. Yang Dingtian said. In other words, it's been almost 3 months. Yes. Jia said. Yang Dingtian said. Didn't you take any defensive measures at that time? Jia looked up at Yang Dingtian and said. I did. You know that I don't like you. Of course, I don't want to give birth to your child. I was thinking that if you died one day, I would remarry Yao Qi. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but frown. She was pregnant after taking defensive measures. Was he that powerful? Jia suddenly said. Actually, you can just treat it as an accident. Don't mind it. I have the ability to raise this child. You can pretend that nothing happened. Yang Dingtian sighed and said. Believe me, Jia, it's not that easy. Whether it's for you or for me, it's not that easy. Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly said. Can I touch the child in your belly? Jia trembled. She was not used to such a request. Yang Dingtian walked over and gently touched Jia's belly. He closed his eyes, trying to feel the little life in her belly. At this time, ordinary people could not feel the heartbeat of the little life in her belly. However, Yang Dingtian could feel it. It was a peaceful and strong aura. When Yang Dingtian's hand touched her belly, Jia's body went soft. She had the urge to lean back. However, she resisted and stood there motionless. Yang Dingtian gently touched Jia's belly. The two of them fell into a complicated silence. After a quarter of an hour, he said, All right, I'll be leaving. Jia nodded. Yang Dingtian turned and left out on the way back to the Hall of Skulls. Yang Dingtian covered his body in a cloak. When he passed by the Shadow Spear clan, Monster Wrath II was already waiting for him with 2 martial saints. When they saw Yang Dingtian, they did not say anything. The 2 martial saints followed behind him and headed to the Hall of Skulls. Moreover, according to Yang Dingtian's request, they handed him a bottle of related elixirs. After Yang Dingtian entered the Hall of Skulls, the 2 martial saints guarded outside the silver door. Because Yongxi and Monster Wrath II had personally agreed, no one could open this silver door for half a year. In the Hall of Skulls, Yang Dingtian waited for 2 hours. The green door of the human kingdom opened. This was because the captive from the Netherworld Sea had entered the illusory realm of the taboo continent and opened the green door for Yang Dingtian. That's right. Almost all of the Netherworld Sea's martial grandmasters had cultivated in the taboo continent. However, they were only stuck in the 6th world. So far, the one who had walked the furthest in the taboo continent was Princess Mudan. Even others did not know how she had passed through the later worlds. After leaving the Hall of Skulls, Yang Dingtian flew for more than 1,000 miles. Immediately, he saw Ling Wu at the entrance of the taboo continent's sea region. Of course, he still did not see Wu Yuming. However, it was obvious that he had started to guard the entrance. As for Dongfang Minmi, Dishi Bian, and the other captive from the Netherworld Sea, they were waiting for Yang Dingtian at the entrance. Has the Little Western Paradise succeeded? Ling Wu asked. Yang Dingtian said, It has succeeded. We can enter the illusory realm of the taboo continent to cultivate at any time. Ling Wu, I'll leave the entrance of the human kingdom to you. I'll return to the central capital first. After dealing with the relevant matters, I'll return to the Hall of Skulls in 2 or 3 days at most. I'll bring the first batch of you to cultivate. All right, Ling Wu said. After returning to the central capital, Yun Zhenu passed a letter to Yang Dingtian and said, This is the letter Master left behind before she left. Before she left? Yang Dingtian was stunned. Yun Zhenu said. After she left the central capital, she first went to the Vulture Palace before returning to the Snakeman Empire. This letter was left behind after she returned to the Snakeman Empire. Yang Dingtian opened the letter and read it. Immediately he was shocked. There were only a few simple words on the letter. Do you want to know the whereabouts of the 5th stage of the pig-slaying sword technique? Agree to my conditions. Otherwise. Chapter 777. The 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship? After the initial shock, Yang Dingtian only had one thought in his mind. Don't lie to me. How could Queen Hyexan know about the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship? Yes, the first volume of the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship was auctioned off by the Naga Empire. But Queen Poisa had said that this was the only volume. There was nothing else. But then again, the first volume of the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship was found by Queen Hyexan, because Queen Poisa never left the Naga tribe. Therefore, Queen Hyexan might really know the whereabouts of the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. But Yang Dingtian also knew the rough whereabouts. At the end of the 4th stage, Shiwu Piaoyan also said that he was going to write the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. He might be able to write it, but he might not, because the 5th stage was ready to tear the space apart. The reason why Shiwu Piaoyan studied this topic was that he found that the whole world was divided into many planes. Each plane could not be reached directly. He had to jump through space. And if he wanted to study the destruction of the world, or to save the world, he had to go to the Naga Empire. If he wanted to go to the Naga Empire, he had to jump through space. And he said that in order to write the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, he would go to the void border, because there was a kind of void beast that could disappear in an instant and appear in another place. They had the ability to travel through space. He wanted to study this kind of void beast. Speaking of which, Yang Dingtian had already been to the void border twice. The first time was the one where Yao Qi died. There were energy creatures at the void border, but there were no legendary void beasts. There were only many electric creatures. The second time was at the void border of the dark world. That void border meant complete death. There was no life, not even energy creatures. Yang Dingtian thought for a moment, and decided to ignore Queen Hyexan's temptation and threat for the time being. He would first arrange the matters related to his cultivation in the taboo continent. The Council of Light's most difficult time had passed. The reorganization of the central continent was on the right track. The only threat at the moment was the Spirit Vulture Palace. And with Wolingzi's cowardice, he would not dare to take the initiative to look for trouble. But half of the Council of Light had to stay behind to handle the relevant matters. In general, they were divided into 2 groups to enter the taboo continent to cultivate. For example, Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue. Their positions in the taboo continent were the same. One stayed behind while the other went to the taboo continent. Dongfang Nimi and Qin Wancho were in the same situation. Therefore, one stayed behind, and the other went to cultivate. Qiu Wanjie and Kuei Si, Yin Kalin and Duan Rian, Kuei Qing and Song Chunhua were all in the same situation. In short, all the core experts of the Radiant Parliament above the Grandmaster level had entered the taboo continent to train. Why did it have to be above the master level? Of course, it wasn't because they were discriminating against people below the master level. It was because only the strong people above the master level could withstand the cultivation inside. However, there were close to 100 people at the core level of the Radiant Parliament who were above the Guru level, including Shiman Lai and Madame Shiman. They had broken through to masters in the past few years. Ning Roer was supposed to be a high-level martial honorable, but after a woman got married, it was difficult for her to maintain her ambition to cultivate. Her current cultivation progress was already very difficult. Recently, she was preparing to have a child, so she did not have the time. Horror Mountain Village's Zhao Mu was a pleasant surprise. Although he had not broken through to masters, he was already a 6-star martial honorable. However, he had wasted a lot of time on his cultivation. As the second in command of the Southwest Continent's Central Defense District, he was so busy that he forgot to eat and sleep every day. Another pleasant surprise was Li Guanong. He was almost 60 years old. After obtaining the Xian Gathering Formation and using the Council of Light's large amount of resources, his martial arts had a second spring. In a short 5 years, he had soared from a mid-level martial honorable to a mid-level master. It could be seen that his talent was extremely shocking. It was just that in the past few decades, wooden sword castle's decline had delayed his cultivation. Of course, there was one more person on the list that Yang Dingtian was puzzled. That was Lung Ao. He had also broken through to Masters, and was currently a 2-star master. Yang Dingtian was already 25 years old this year, and he was already in his early 30s. Breaking through to Masters at the age of 30 was considered quite an amazing existence. Because of Lung Qingchen, Yang Dingtian had always felt guilty towards him. However, his name was originally on the list, but it was crossed out. Yang Dingtian asked someone, but in the end, it was Dongfang Minmi who crossed it out himself. Yang Dingtian asked his master, but he said that Lung Ao's thoughts were wrong, so he made the decision to cross out Lung Ao's name. Of course, the reason was that Lung Ao used to be very close to Zhu Qingzhu and Zhu Hongyu. He was also quite disgusted by the fact that Yang Dingtian's forces had entered the East continent. In short, he was hostile towards Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian hesitated for a moment and said, "Master, let me see Lung Ao and give him a chance." Dongfang Minmi sighed and then nodded. Then, Shadowless rode on Yang Dingtian's Demon Eagle King, and went to the Yinyang school to summon Lung Ao. Yang Dingtian was surprised. Did Shadowless need to do such a small thing himself? He could have just sent someone else. In the end, when Shadowless brought the demon onto the Demon Eagle, Yang Dingtian knew. The demon must have felt bored in Zhongjing, and wanted to go to the Yinyang school to play. It was quite interesting. At that time, the demon was brought to Zhongjing by Yang Dingtian. Then he asked someone to find Shadowless. As soon as it saw Shadowless, it pounced on him and clung onto him like a koala. Yang Dingtian didn't guess wrongly. Her lover was indeed Shadowless. Yun Zhenu told Yang Dingtian that Shadowless's reaction was quite interesting. At first he was stunned. Then, he tightly held onto the demon's short skirt to prevent her from being exposed. Because the demon's skirt was very short, it would be very easy for her to be exposed if it was wrapped around his body. Shadowless was afraid of being taken advantage of, so he quickly blocked it. Then, the two of them were together without any obstacles. Yang Dingtian was very curious. He once asked Shadowless, "Do you remember what happened with the demon?" He shook his head, indicating that he didn't remember at all. Yang Dingtian was shocked. "Uncle Master, you don't remember her, and you got together so quickly. You're really bold," Shadowless said. "I don't remember things clearly, but I remember the smell. I often dream about it, but I can't see her face clearly. Now that she's here, I can see clearly." Then a human and a demon fox got together just like that. The strange thing was that the two of them didn't speak the same language. Shadowless often didn't speak for 3 to 5 days. As for the demon, she would die if she didn't speak for 3 to 5 minutes. That wasn't all. In order to resist the drop in cultivation, the demon even turned into a fox. Sometimes she would be held in Shadowless's arms. Sometimes she would run around under his feet. In short, this special pair of lovers was very close to each other. Many people were envious. Moreover, in the Council of Light's Taboo Continent cultivation mission, the demon and Shadowless would be very useful. Because the demon had saved Shadowless's life in the Skull Palace, she was relatively familiar with the Taboo Continent and the Skull Palace. Of course, there was another very important beauty in this cultivation mission. That was Ling Bai and Demon Vulture King Aja. Previously, Yang Dingtian had thought of letting Aja lead Wu Maji, Dishibian, and the others into cultivation. In the end, it didn't work. That was because Aja also had memories in the Taboo Continent's illusion. He was also stuck at the beginning of the 6th world. Therefore, once he entered the Taboo Continent's illusion, his progress would be different from Wu Maji's. Therefore, he didn't know what would happen then. Moreover, he and Ling Bai had a greater mission. That was to open the human gate in the Skull Palace every 2 hours, so that Yang Dingtian, or the others could enter and exit at any time. That was because Ling Bai and Aja were stuck at the beginning of the 6th world. Once they entered the Taboo Continent's illusion, they could leave the Taboo Continent at any time through the reverse void illusion. It was easy for others to enter the Taboo Continent, but it would be troublesome to leave. The list of the first wave of people going to the taboo continent to cultivate had been made. This time, Qin Wancho stayed behind and Dongfang Minmi went to cultivate. During this time, Yang Dingtian would shuttle back and forth between the Skull Palace and the Human Kingdom. 16 hours later, Shadowless rode the Demon Vulture King back. However, Lung Ao didn't come. Lung Ao said that if there's anything, you should talk to him personally. Don't be so arrogant. Wait for his visit in Zhongjing. Shadowless relayed Lung Ao's words. Instantly, Dongfang Minmi was so angry that he trembled all over. Was Yang Dingtian putting on airs? They were verifying the list on top, distinguishing which group would stay first, and which group would enter to cultivate. Yang Dingtian was busy with official business. Moreover, Dongfang Minmi crossed out Lung Ao's name. Yang Dingtian wanted to give him another chance. Dongfang Minmi was even more disappointed in Lung Ao. Yang Dingtian also felt angry in his heart. However, Lung Qingchen's eyes before she died suddenly appeared in his mind. Master, since the list has been decided, it's time to assign and arrange work. I don't have anything to do, so I'll go to the Yinyang school. If I can untie the knot in his heart, it would be the best. Yang Dingtian said. Dongfang Minmi's face twitched for a while, but he didn't say anything. Although he was angry with Lung Ao, he wanted to protect and take care of him. Lung Ao's kindness to him was as heavy as a mountain, so he couldn't let Lung Ao go the wrong way. The reason why he crossed out Lung Ao's name was another kind of protection. Now that Yang Dingtian took the initiative to untie Lung Ao's knot, he was certainly willing to see it. Therefore, Yang Dingtian rode the Demon Vulture King and flew directly to the Yinyang school in the eastern cloud state. A distance of nearly 20,000 miles. The current Demon Vulture King only needed 8 hours to fly. Now a claw's flying speed had surpassed all mounts in seconds, even the flying speed of a great grandmaster. At the Yinyang school, Yang Dingtian saw Lung Ao. He was still cold and handsome, but his face had a bit of wind and frost. Senior brother Lung, this time, the powerhouses above the great grandmaster level of the Council of Light will go to a secret realm to cultivate. You're in the first batch. What do you think? Yang Dingtian asked. When Lung Ao saw Yang Dingtian come in person, his eyes were slightly moved. Then I have to thank Sect Master Yang for his care. Lung Ao said. No, this is the original arrangement. Yang Dingtian said. Lung Ao said. But I know that Sect Master Dongfang has already crossed out my name, because I was hostile to you, verbally attacked you, and was very close to Zhu Hongyu. Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment and said, I know that because of Bing Ling, Senior Brother Lung is hostile to me, but it doesn't matter. I believe that Senior Brother Lung still upholds justice in his heart, just like Uncle Lung Qingchen. Justice? What is justice? Lung Ao said with a smile. Is my father righteous enough? He's dead. I've already seen through all of this. Yang Dingtian, thank you for coming. I won't go to that secret realm to cultivate. Then, Lung Ao turned around and was about to leave. Yang Dingtian's face twitched, and he said, Lung Ao, you called me all the way here just to tell me this? Lung Ao looked at Yang Dingtian. Sorry, I just said that casually to Shadowless. I didn't expect you to really come. Yang Dingtian, are you going to continue living like this? Lung Ao said with a smile. What else can I do? The woman I love was taken away by you, and my father was killed by you. Do you want me to crawl at your feet loyally and go through fire and water for you? Yang Dingtian immediately trembled and said sternly, Are you going through fire and water for me? You don't need to be loyal to me. You only need to be loyal to this world. Don't talk to me about grand principles. Lung Ao waved his hand and said, I saw you when you were still grass, so no matter how high your status is now, in my heart, you will always be the Yang Dingtian from 5 years ago. Your grand principles are not persuasive to me. Haha. Yang Dingtian immediately laughed and said, Lung Ao, you're half right. 5 years ago, I was a grass, but now I'm still a grass in my heart, and I will be like this in the future. I'm not like you. I've never been high and mighty, or the whole human race, the whole living thing, has always been a humble and tenacious grass. Well, I'm powerless to persuade you, you're on your own. Then, Yang Dingtian turned around and was about to leave. Right at this moment, a gorgeous and peerlessly beautiful figure suddenly drifted over. It was the Princess Mu Dan that Yang Dingtian was very familiar with, but also very strange to him. Of course, it was also Dongfang Bingling. At this time, even in the depths of her eyes, there was no icy aura. From inside to outside, she was completely a first-class evil spirit. She glanced at Yang Dingtian, and then said to Lung Ao, "Senior brother Lung Ao, I need your help, will you come with me?" Lung Ao's body suddenly trembled. Yang Dingtian said loudly, "Lung Ao, she is not Dongfang Bingling, she is now Mu Dan of the Temple of Annihilation." "So what?" Lung Ao smiled at Yang Dingtian, and then said to Mu Dan, "I'll go with you, but can you surpass Yang Dingtian?" "Yes," Mu Dan said. "Okay, then I'll go with you," Lung Ao said decisively. Chapter 778. Seeing that Lung Ao was about to follow Mu Dan, Yang Dingtian suddenly activated the Devil Spirit Demon Fire, and instantly froze Lung Ao. Then, a devil sky-splitting lightning suddenly burst out, and directly struck Lung Ao's chi vessel. The entire process was very straightforward and decisive. He would rather destroy Lung Ao's cultivation than watch him become a lackey of evil ways. Pa! A huge lightning bolt suddenly tore out and directly appeared at Lung Ao's chi vessel. With Lung Ao's cultivation, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand such a shocking lightning bolt. His entire chi vessel would instantly collapse and disintegrate. But suddenly, Lung Ao's body was suddenly enveloped by a layer of mist-like barrier. It instantly protected his entire body and blocked the devil sky-splitting lightning outside. That's right. The Devil Sky-Splitting Lightning could ignore any energy barrier. However, this barrier was an insulating barrier. Yang Dingtian clearly saw that Mu Dan waved her lily-white hand, and instantly, the stones on the ground turned into ashes and turned into an insulating barrier. Such an ability was simply amazing. Although she wasn't a celestial spirit master, such a gorgeous effect was even better than Vulture, a celestial spirit master. Mu Dan looked at Yang Dingtian and sneered. Nihility Piaoling said that learning the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship is equivalent to having the symbol of a hidden sect disciple. Here it refers to lightning energy chaos and the reversal of yin and yang. Everyone says that lightning is invincible and can't be defended against. In fact, there are at least 100 ways to defend against lightning for a half-saint powerhouse. Then, she raised her lily-white hand, and Lung Ao's body suddenly floated up and landed behind her. Yang Dingtian looked at Lung Ao and said, "Lung Ao, think carefully. Once you take this step, we will be enemies. It will be impossible for you to turn back, even if you want to. Furthermore, don't expect me to show mercy to you." Lung Ao said indifferently, "Yang Dingtian, we have always been enemies." Mu Dan looked at Yang Dingtian and smiled. "Then I'll take my leave." After saying that, she directly floated up, and Lung Ao's body also flew up, under the protection of her aura. As they flew away, Mu Dan suddenly smiled and said, "Yang Dingtian, I can bestow second-class evil spirits to 5 people. Lung Ao is the first one. Who do you think I will bestow to the next 4 people?" Then she disappeared without a trace. Yang Dingtian looked in the direction where she disappeared, and suddenly had a headache. He originally wanted to tell Lung Ao that Lung Qingchen died under the sword of Princess Mu Dan, but he didn't say it in the end. On a deserted island, Mu Dan looked at Lung Ao and said slowly, "Have you thought about it? You really want to accept my second-class evil spirit? Do you know that once this second-class evil spirit is given to you, you can't turn back?" Lung Ao looked at Mu Dan fervently and said, "I didn't want to turn back for a long time. Since you have gone to hell, then I will go to hell with you." "Good. Welcome to the world of evil ways," Mu Dan said. Then she stretched out her hand. A blue evil spirit tree slowly grew from her palm. There were 5 branches on it, all of which were empty at this time. Lung Ao knelt, put his hands together, and said, "Please give me strength. As long as I can defeat Yang Dingtian, as long as I can follow by your side, I will do anything." Mu Dan held one of the evil spirit branches, pulled it lightly, and threw it on Lung Ao's head. In an instant, the second-class evil spirit energy turned into thousands of strands and suddenly drilled into Lung Ao's brain. Then his entire head burst out with green light. His entire eyeballs and hair turned completely green. Then the green energy in his head began to spread throughout his body and began to permeate every Xian vein. Lung Ao's entire body turned a terrifying green. All the flesh and blood in his body seemed to have turned a transparent green, looking incomparably terrifying and strange. Then, the sky for hundreds of miles was instantly covered by dark clouds. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The surrounding hundreds of miles of sea churned and surged violently, setting off monstrous waves. Finally, with the entire deserted island as the origin, the hundreds of miles of sea turned into a huge Xian fire. Then, all the Xian Qi energy in the surrounding hundreds of miles frantically poured into Lung Ao's body. Devour, frantically devour, endlessly devour. His cultivation began to soar crazily. From 3-star Grandmaster to 4-star, 5-star, 6-star, 7-star, 8-star, 9-star. Then 9-star first class, 9-star second class, all the way to 9-star ninth class. Finally, this second-class evil spirit was still unable to help him directly break through to the great Grandmaster realm. Then, all the green light dissipated and drilled into his sea of qi. Lung Ao's entire body returned to its original state, but his eyes became incomparably bright and astonishing, and his skin seemed to have been carved out of jade. Just a little bit more, and you'll break through to the great Grandmaster realm. It will only take a few months, Mu Dan said. Lung Ao stretched out his hands and felt his strength. This feeling surprised and disappointed him. He said, "My current cultivation is still far from Yangdingtian's, isn't it?" Mu Dan said, "With the second-class evil spirit, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds." Lung Ao said, "Then what do I need to do now? As long as it's against the Council of Light, as long as it's against Yangdingtian, I can do it." Mu Dan shook her head and said, "No, you don't have to do anything now. When I need you to do something, I will inform you." Lung Ao looked at Mu Dan's beautiful face and said, "Then can I follow you in the future?" Mu Dan looked at him and said, "From now on, you are my man. Moreover, you can also bestow third-class evil spirits to 5 people. The life and death of these 5 people will be completely in your hands." After that, Mu Dan gently floated up and flew toward the west. Lung Ao said, "What are we going to do next?" Mu Dan said, "Find the second evil spirit owner." Yang Dingtian returned to Zhongjing with uneasiness. He deeply knew that the Doomsday War was already very close. This was because the evil ways had already begun to breed more evil spirits. Princess Mu Dan had already started to develop second-class evil spirits. These people would become the backbone of the evil ways in the future, and become the commanders of the Legion of Doom. Yuming also had first-class evil spirits. However, he seemed to be uninterested in developing second-class evil spirits, and only gave them to Ling Wu. As for Dongli, he was currently trapped in the Little Western Paradise and hadn't returned yet. He wouldn't be able to return to the human continent for at least half a year. Then, the only person who could bestow second-class evil spirits was Princess Mu Dan. She still had 4 quotas left. Who would she give them to? The most terrifying situation was that she would give the second-class evil spirits to Yang Dingtian's closest people, or even his wife. In this way, the life and death of Yang Dingtian's relatives would all be in the hands of Mu Dan. However, Yang Dingtian firmly believed that Mu Dan wouldn't do this. Moreover, doing so would only be able to take revenge on Yang Dingtian. Instead, it would waste the precious second-class evil spirits. This was because the cultivation of Yang Dingtian's relatives wasn't high. Furthermore, second-class evil spirits couldn't change a person's will. Therefore, they couldn't control their actions. Although Mu Dan didn't do this, it didn't mean that Dongli wouldn't do this. Yang Dingtian was almost certain that with Dongli's bone-deep hatred for him, once he possessed a first-class evil spirit, he would undoubtedly take revenge on Yang Dingtian. He would definitely give the second-class evil spirits to Yang Dingtian's wives, and even do more beastly things to them. Half a year. There was at most half a year left before Dongli, would return to the human continent. No, Dongli definitely can't live. I must kill him. It would be best if I could kill him directly in the Little Western Paradise. This was because once Dongli possessed a first-class evil spirit, his cultivation was very likely to break through to the half-saint level, just like Yu Ming. At that time, it would be very difficult for Yang Dingtian to kill him in the human countries. And in the Little Western Paradise, what were the chances of Demon's Wrath 2 killing Dongli? At present, although Yang Dingtian and Demon's Wrath 2 were allies, Yang Dingtian couldn't guarantee how likely it was for Demon's Wrath to offend Yongxi Wentian to kill Dongli. After all, Demon's Wrath was completely self-centered. At this time, Yongxi Wentian could give him far more benefits than Yang Dingtian. Although the situation had changed dramatically, the cultivation plan in the Taboo Continent couldn't be stopped. Because Dongfang Minmi was going to the Taboo Continent to cultivate, Yang Dingtian didn't tell him about Lung Ao. Yang Dingtian still followed the original plan and brought dozens of Council of Light Grandmaster-level powerhouses to the Skull Hall in the Taboo Continent's Sea region. The remaining Grandmaster-level core members stayed behind to maintain the operation of the Council of Light. Song Lihua and Tang Bojiao, the two think tanks, had no interest in improving their cultivation at present. They were completely focused on government affairs. Qin Wancho was the highest level left behind by the Council of Light. Yang Dingtian said to him, "Uncle Qin, I'll be back in 4 or 5 days at most. During this time, I'll have to trouble you." He didn't even mention that Mu Dan was developing a second-class evil spirit slave. Because Mu Dan was a half-saint powerhouse, no one could stop her from doing anything. Moreover, even if she wanted to plant a second-class evil spirit in a core member of the Council of Light, Yang Dingtian would dare to gamble with her. For example, Kuei Si Song Xiao, and even Qin Wancho. Even if they were planted with a second-class evil spirit, they might not follow Mu Dan. Although it would make them fall into darkness, it was impossible for them to immediately betray Yang Dingtian and the Council of Light. Instead, it would make their cultivation soar. After a day and a night, dozens of Council of Light experts rode dozens of demon eagles and arrived at the entrance of the Taboo Continent's Sea region. They still couldn't see the half-saint powerhouse Wu Yuming, but he was guarding this entrance. With him guarding this entrance, no one in the human countries should be able to pass through, including Mu Dan and Queen Hai Xian. Yang Dingtian had already explained everything about the Taboo Continent's first world to the fifth world. The main point was how to return to the real world. It was very simple for those who had the mystic fire. They just had to travel in the reverse direction in the void environment and shoot out the mystic fire. Their instantaneous speed would be more than 2,000 miles per hour. However, those without the mystic fire would be troublesome. Therefore, they had to be divided into groups. For every 3 people in a clan, one of them only needed to possess the mystic flame. Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't know if some people in the real world would be able to wake them up if they were to be pushed or disturbed while cultivating in the Taboo Continent's illusion. However, Yang Dingtian wasn't ready to try this at the moment, because the consequences might be very terrifying. "Uncle Shadowless Demon Spirit, you two enter the main hall first and wake up immediately," Yang Dingtian said. "In the next few months, you two have to stay in the main hall and be responsible for everyone's safety at all times." "Yes, Sect Master," Shadowless said. Then, the two of them held hands and flew directly into the Taboo Continent's Sea region. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from everyone's sight. Yang Dingtian said to Demon Vulture King Azu and Ling Bai, "The two of you have a very important mission too. Every 2 hours, you have to enter and exit the Skull Main Hall, and ensure that the door is open every 2 hours. Do you understand?" Demon Vulture King nodded, and used his claws to make an okay gesture. Ling Bai seemed very nervous, and kept repeating Yang Dingtian's words. However, Yang Dingtian now completely believed that she could do it, because she was very dogmatic. As long as she was instructed to do something, she would do it strictly. The people in the first group were almost the most important, and also the most luxurious group. Dishi Bian, Wu Maji Ling Wu. The 3 of them had the mystic fire, and their cultivation wasn't low. They should be separated. However, Dishi Bian and Wu Maji were inseparable, they couldn't leave each other. As for Ling Wu, as Wu Yoming's sworn sister, she had to be the most important too. Therefore, the three of them were placed in the first group. Of course, there was also a demon vulture. The three of them, and the demon vulture had prepared a lot of elixirs. Yang Dingtian didn't hug Wu Maji. He only said lightly, Ji, I've already told you in detail about how to pass through those worlds in the taboo continent. Among the three of us, you're the group leader. You have to coordinate everything. Emoji smiled sweetly at Yang Dingtian and said, Don't worry, my husband. Then, the three of them rode on a demon vulture and flew towards the taboo continent's sea region. Not long after, they also disappeared directly. 2 hours later, the second group entered. The second group was led by Dongfang Minmi. He led 2 grandmasters with lower cultivation. One of them was Shiman Lai. The third group was Madame Shiman, Kuei Qing and Song Chunhua. Song Chunhua was the leader. There were a total of 14 groups. About 15 minutes after Moji's first group entered, Yang Dingtian said to Dongfang Minmi, Master, I'll enter the main hall first and wait for you inside. Don't worry, Dongfang Minmi said. Then, Yang Dingtian flew into the taboo continent's sea region. Merely 15 minutes later, Yang Dingtian entered the 6th world of the taboo continent's illusory realm. Then, he used his fastest speed to escape from the illusory realm and appeared in the main hall. At this moment, Shadowless and Demon Spirit were sitting at the corner of the main hall. Wu Maji, Dishi Bian, Ling Wu, and the demon vulture of the first group were in the center of the main hall. Obviously, their cultivation in the taboo continent had already begun. At the same time, Princess Mu Dan was bringing Lung Ao to find the second-grade evil spirit enslaved person. Chapter 779. In the following time, groups of cultivators rode a demon eagle and flew into the illusion of the taboo continent. Perhaps, after a few months of cultivation, they would be able to nurture a large number of powerful demon eagles. At that time, it would be very useful to have dozens of demon eagles that could fly at a speed of more than 2,000 miles and could fight against 100 demon eagles. Every 2 hours a group would enter. After more than 10 hours, a total of 14 groups had all entered the illusion of the taboo continent. As for the demon eagle King Arja and Ling Bai, they would take turns to enter and exit the skull hall every 2 hours to keep the door open. Yang Dingtian didn't guess wrongly. Although Ling Bai's brain was suppressed by dogmatism, she was quite accurate in following specific orders. As for the demon eagle King Arja, needless to say, this guy had become a spirit. Half of the essence of the Council of Light was here. Now, everyone's faces were filled with fatigue, surprise, mystery, and difficulty as they began to cultivate in the first world, the hard rock continent. Unlike Yang Dingtian, he flew aimlessly for tens of thousands of miles before descending. As for these dozen or so groups, they began to descend as soon as they entered the taboo continent. Therefore, they would travel tens of thousands of miles, more than Yang Dingtian in the first world. Moreover, the direction of entering the taboo continent and the landing place were all different. This was because Yang Dingtian wanted to try his best not to let the groups meet in the world inside. This was because that feeling of loneliness and helplessness was more obvious for the improvement of one's cultivation. A group of 3, plus a demon eagle was almost the best choice. Yang Dingtian could already see it clearly, although they were cultivating in the illusion in their minds. But in reality, the effect was exactly the same as real. This was because everyone's profound chi was desperately being consumed. Everyone was resisting the 5 times anti-gravity. Yang Dingtian could even see many people's veins bulging and muscles twitching. In short, although they were sitting cross-legged without moving, their entire bodies, profound veins, and energy chi were completely being consumed and cultivated. Yang Dingtian really didn't know where the skull hall came from. But in short, this world is really mysterious. It should be the best place for cultivation in the whole world. Bing Ling had cultivated there for more than 2 years, and had directly broken through to the half-saint realm. Of course, 2 years in the real world would be countless years in the taboo continent's illusory realm. It might even be more than 10,000 years. Fortunately, her will was suppressed by the evil spirit. Otherwise, with her will and wisdom as a perfected being, even if she was as tough as iron, she would definitely collapse after cultivating for such a long time. Young Dingtian had wasted more than half a month on the hard rock continent. In the end, it seemed that it had taken him a full 3 months to finish exploring the first world. In other words, it was about 16 days in real time. Of course, because these dozen or so groups were tens of thousands of li longer, it should be around the same time. Perhaps it would take around half a month. Of course, some groups might take less than half a month. Mu Dan and Lung Ao arrived in Zhongjing. Who's the second-grade dark spirit you're going to bestow? Lung Ao asked. Zhu Hongxue, Mu Dan said. Suddenly, Lung Ao's eyebrows twitched, and a trace of jealousy surged in his heart. Obviously, he did not want Zhu Hongxue to obtain a second-grade dark spirit, and he did not want Zhu Hongxue to be by Bingling's side. Because from the beginning, Zhu Hongxue was his real love rival. At this time, Zhu Hongxue was in North Zhongzhou. Because Dongfang Minmi had gone to the taboo continent's illusory realm, Black Heaven sect master Zhuo Qingqi was guarding Zhongjing. Cheng Deibai had also gone to the taboo continent's illusory realm, and Elder Ning Busi was guarding the east continent. Qin Wancho was shuttling back and forth between the west continent and Zhongjing. Of course, his focus was still on the reorganization of the entire South Zhongzhou. As for Zhu Hongxue, he was guarding North Zhongzhou. Not only was he guarding the Black Heaven sect, but he was also the supreme commander of 2 to 3 million elite troops in North Zhongzhou. Although he only had one arm left, his cultivation did not decrease after his arm was cut off. It was really strange. It was as if some kind of restraint was removed, and his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. It had been almost 2 years since he became a grandmaster. Now, while he was busy, his cultivation had broken through to a 4-star grandmaster, and he was almost catching up to Qin Huayu. North Zhongzhou's military affairs were the lightest. The reorganization of the military had basically been completed, and now, all that was left was training, training and training. As for the development of weapons, it was all carried out secretly in the West Continent. The heaven-defying ancient beast Xiao Xiao was responsible for guarding the secret sea. Young master, someone has come to visit. He says he's an old friend. An elder of the Black Heaven sect came in and said. Zhu Hongxue frowned slightly. Although he had matured a lot, he did not like anyone to disturb him except for work matters, let alone an old friend. Got it, Zhu Hongxue said, then got up and walked out. The first person Zhu Hongxue saw was Princess Mu Dan, who was wearing a veil. Of course, it was also Dongfang Bingling. Obviously, he was stunned. Then, his gaze shifted to Lung Ao behind her, and his eyes suddenly turned cold. Obviously, his memory of Dongfang Bingling had been sealed for a long time, and he could not even recall it at once. Therefore, the first thing he felt was anger toward Lung Ao. He did not know about Lung Ao's depravity. However, he knew that Yang Dingtian personally went to the Yinyang school to persuade Lung Ao, but he was rejected. Therefore, he instinctively wanted to say that he was not welcome here, and please leave and return to the Yinyang school. Because of Lung Ao's special hostility, the Council of Light's internal opinion was to put him under semi-house arrest in the Yinyang school. Once he left or walked in the world, the Council of Light would capture him to prevent him from destroying the Council of Light's great cause. However, just as he was about to say this, he could not help but look at Princess Mu Dan's figure again. Then, it was as if a violent bolt of lightning had struck his brain. All the memories that had been sealed for a long time emerged. Dongfang Bingling's every move, every detail of her face, and the graceful curves of her body were instantly engraved in his mind. Then, there was a burst of suffocating pressure and piercing pain. Mu Dan slowly took off her veil, revealing her beautiful face. It was still the same peerless beauty in his memory, but the frosty feeling was gone, replaced by a breathtaking beauty. It had been more than 5 years, and this was the first time Zhu Hongxue saw Dongfang Bingling's face. Faced with the feelings in his heart, he had already chosen to seal them. Therefore, he did not make any preparations or plans for meeting her. Suddenly, he clutched his heart and bent down with some difficulty. He wanted to find a place to sit down, because he felt like he could not stand straight. The reaction to this meeting was much more intense than he had imagined. Are you okay? Zhu Hongxue asked with difficulty. Mu Dan smiled and said, I'm not okay, but I'm not okay either. How about you? Are you okay? Me. Zhu Hongxue said, I'm fine. Mu Dan said, let's walk together, do you want to? Zhu Hongxue said, okay. Then, Mu Dan gently floated up and flew toward the highest mountain nearby. Zhu Hongxue also flew up. Then, the two of them stood at the top of the mountain, separated by 3 to 4 meters, and strolled side by side. Zhu Hongxue, why are you following Yang Dingtian? Mu Dan asked. Zhu Hongxue said, to pursue self-worth and self-improvement. Mu Dan said, then can you be more specific? Zhu Hongxue said, to win the doomsday battle and save the world. Mu Dan said, a very noble dream. Then, do you think this is the highest ideal and goal? Zhu Hongxue nodded. Mu Dan said, actually, there is another ideal and goal that is even more ambitious. Zhu Hongxue said, what is it? Mu Dan said, to challenge fate and adjust the god of the primal chaos world. Suddenly, Zhu Hongxue's heart twitched violently. Mu Dan said, fate, do you know what fate is? Zhu Hongxue did not speak. Mu Dan said, fate is when God uses one hand to mercilessly manipulate everything in the world, including Yang Dingtian's destined rise, including my love with Yang Dingtian, including your submission to Yang Dingtian, including your loss of the love of your life, including my demonization. Suddenly, Zhu Hongxue's body twitched, and he was somewhat unable to move forward. Mu Dan continued, everyone is a chess piece of God, including me, including Yang Dingtian, including you, including the demon king Wentian. Of course, Yang Dingtian is a chess piece in God's hand, and can be considered his spokesperson. In the previous round, he chose to control the demon king Wentian as a chess piece, and played the black side. In this round, God chose to control Yang Dingtian as a chess piece, and played the white side. Zhu Hongxue's body trembled even more violently. Mu Dan said, so we are the source of all the tragedies. The source of this world's tragedies, the source of this world's destruction, is that high and mighty God, who mercilessly manipulates us. Zhu Hongxue had already stopped and sat down. Mu Dan said, and the demon king Wentian is unwilling to be manipulated by fate, so he wants to challenge fate and declare war on God. Yang Dingtian's leadership of you should be considered a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Zhu Hongxue immediately looked towards the west instinctively. Yang Dingtian led everyone to the taboo continent in the west. Mu Dan said, so it seems that Yang Dingtian is naturally leading you to uphold justice. In reality, he is indeed leading you to help the evildoers. Everything you do is helping God to mercilessly manipulate everyone's fate. Afterwards, Peony said word by word. In the past, the Armageddon War would happen every 200 years. Every time the hidden sect's final victory, and every time over 100 million people died. It was all God's manipulation. So challenging the God of chaos is our highest justice. Finally, Mu Dan looked straight into Zhu Hongxue's eyes and said slowly, join us? Join us and uphold the highest justice, and challenge the God of chaos. Zhu Hongxue sat on the ground in a daze, unable to move. His gaze was so scattered that it was almost unfocused. Princess Mu Dan's words had an unprecedented impact on him. Moreover, these words were completely irrefutable. It sounded completely correct, completely the truth. Zhu Hongxue was definitely a stubborn person. He was not afraid of death, sacrifice, or even obedience. However, he was afraid that everything he did would be meaningless, afraid that the direction he took would be wrong. He could not help but recall all the things he had done along the way. And of course, all the things Yang Dingtian had done along the way. Were we wrong? Was Yang Dingtian really helping the evildoers by doing this? All of this really seemed like the arrangement of fate, the manipulation of God. Especially in the previous world extermination war, that happened every 200 years. It was the Tiando League that won every time. Every victory seemed very mysterious and mysterious. All of this really seemed like the manipulation of God. If that was the case, then what was the point of fighting? Then what was the meaning of the great cause, and the great justice that he thought of? Peony smiled and said, Come with me. We will possess boundless strength. We will challenge the primal chaos world together and change our fate. We will change the fate of the entire world. I would rather burn resplendently and pass away than follow the prescribed order like a chess piece, and suffer the ridicule of God. Every word Mu Dan said struck the deepest part of Zhu Hongshua's heart. He slowly stood up, his gaze gradually focused and became determined. Mu Dan smiled and said, Alright, follow me, Zhu Hongxue. Zhu Hongxue looked at Mu Dan, shook his head and said, No, your words have indeed struck directly at my heart. However, Yang Dingtian is my leader. When I am confused, I should ask him for advice, and not change my position directly. What you said, I will let Yang Dingtian dispel my doubts. I want to give him a chance to persuade me. Then Zhu Hongxue flew down the mountain. Chapter 780. They stayed in the Skull Hall for 3 full days. In these 3 days, the 14 groups of the Council of Light did not have any accidents in their cultivation, but it became more and more difficult and tiring. This was because half a month had passed in the Dreamland. However, more than a dozen groups had entered a stable cultivation period. Basically, before entering the next world, there would be no accidents. Moreover, even if there was an accident, the demon spirit and shadowless would rescue them immediately. Therefore, Yang Dingtian prepared to leave first and returned to Zhongjing to guard it. After nearly half a month, when the 14 groups were all ready to enter the second level, Yang Dingtian returned to the Skull Hall. Therefore, Yang Dingtian told Shadowless his plan with lip language. Then, the green door of the human kingdom opened, and Ling Bai came in again. Demon Vulture King Azu and Yang Dingtian quickly flew out of the door and left the Skull Hall. After flying out of the Skull Hall's void world, they came to the sky above the taboo continent. At this time, Wu Yoming's figure could no longer be seen. Yang Dingtian touched Demon Vulture King Azu's neck and said, Then I'll leave it to you. Azu rubbed Yang Dingtian's body and made an okay gesture with his claws. Then, Yang Dingtian ran his celestial qi, rode on one of the spare demon vultures waiting on the sea, and flew toward Zhongjing. After 2 days and 1 night, Yang Dingtian returned to Zhongjing. As soon as he entered the headquarters of the Council of Light, he saw Zhu Hongxue waiting there. His beard was overgrown, his face was haggard, and his eyes were red. Yang Dingtian's heart thumped. Obviously, Zhu Hongshue's heart was in a great dilemma. Seeing Yang Dingtian come in, Zhu Hongxue immediately got up and said, Sect Master, you're back. Yes, Yang Dingtian said. You have something to tell me? Yes, Zhu Hongxue said. Well, let's talk inside and have something to eat. Yang Dingtian said. While eating they drank. Bing Ling, come and find me, Zhu Hongxue said. Yang Dingtian glanced at him and nodded. I can guess that she has 5 second-class evil spirits in her hands. She gave the first one to Lung Ao, while she probably wants to give the second one to you. Zhu Hongxue said. She told me a lot of things. There are some things that I don't understand, so I want to ask you for advice. Yang Dingtian. Go ahead. Zhu Hongxue said. First, do you think there are gods in this world? Is there a god of chaos? Yang Dingtian said. There's something called the god of chaos. Zhu Hongxue said. After the great calamity of the ancient era, ever since the martial arts civilization flourished once more, the great calamity of the ancient era began. Every 200 years, there would be an Armageddon battle. It was like the cycle of reincarnation. Every time the Tiando League was held, it was a bizarre and mysterious victory. Every time, there were countless deaths. Tell me, is this the so-called fate? Is this the manipulation of the god of chaos? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, Yes, I think so. Zhu Hongxue said. Then Sect Master Yang, are you a chess piece chosen by the god of chaos? And this time, the god of chaos played the white chess piece. In the last round, The chosen chess piece was the demon king Wentian, but he was a black chess piece. Yang Dingtian. Yes, I was a little confused before, but now I know that I am the so-called spokesperson of the god. Zhu Hongshua's face suddenly trembled and said, Bing Ling said that we seem to be upholding justice, but in the world, we are helping the god of chaos. She said that the demon king Wentian led them to challenge the god of chaos, which is the highest justice. What do you think? Yang Dingtian. She convinced you? Zhu Hongxue said. At least, I can't find a refutation. Yang Dingtian. Then why didn't you accept his second-class evil spirit? Zhu Hongxue said. I want to hear your opinion on this matter. Since I listened to Dongfang Bingling's words, I should also listen to what you have to say, and then make a judgment. Yang Dingtian. You want me to convince you? Zhu Hongxue nodded and said, yes. Yang Dingtian stared at Zhu Hongxue and said, if that's the case, then I'm very disappointed, and I don't intend to say anything. If a person's heart still needs to rely on the words of others to be firm, then this person will always be a coward. Zhu Hongshue's face suddenly trembled and he said loudly, I'm not afraid of sacrifice, I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid that my sacrifice is meaningless. Yang Dingtian. I just want to ask you, what if all this is the manipulation of the god? The so-called upholding justice is a complete joke. Then who is the most pitiful person? Zhu Hongshue's heart suddenly trembled, and he looked at Yang Dingtian. It's you. Yes, it's me. Yang Dingtian said sternly. The most pitiful person is me because of the god's chess piece. The one who should be the most suspicious, and the one who should be the most shaken is me. I'm not fucking shaken. I don't fucking have any doubts. I don't fucking feel that I'm pitiful. So why are you Zhu Hongxue sad? Then, Yang Dingtian drank a cup of wine and stared at Zhu Hongxue. Why are you so pretentious? You even put down the important matters of the northern middle state and waited here for me to come back, waiting for me to explain to you and give you a firm will. How old are you? Do you still need an adult to coax you and stew chicken soup for the soul for you? I don't have the time. You have two choices now. First, immediately scram back to the northern middle state and do your things. Second, go find Mu Dan now and accept her second-class evil spirit. You want an explanation from me, and you want to be convinced? No. Then Yang Dingtian turned and left. He returned to his room and began to deal with a large number of official matters. The next day when Yang Dingtian came out, he saw Zhu Hongxue again. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were even redder. He sat there without moving. Seeing Yang Dingtian come out, he immediately stood up and said, I don't want you to convince me. I just have some thoughts that I want to report to you. Do you think I'm right? Yang Dingtian said, speak. Zhu Hongxue said, first, no matter what she said, challenging the god of chaos is the highest justice. However, once the world-ending war starts, if we don't stand out, the entire world will fall into evil ways. The entire world will be plunged into darkness. Then, even if Wentian defeats the god of chaos in the end, everything will lose its meaning, right? Yang Dingtian nodded. Yes. Zhu Hongxue said. Then I understand, but I want you to tell me something, just one thing, okay? Anything is fine. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, first, Wentian doesn't want to defeat the god of chaos. He wants to perish together with the god of chaos and drag the entire world down with him. Secondly, if you want to ask me, is everything we are doing now controlled by the god of chaos? Is this the so-called helping the evildoer? I can only tell you, sorry. We don't have the qualifications to think about this question. Zhu Hongxue was stunned. Yang Dingtian said, yes, you don't have the qualifications to think about it. The world-ending war hasn't been won yet, and most of the people in this world haven't been saved. What qualifications do you have to think about the so-called fate, the so-called manipulation of the god of chaos? For example, if you are trapped in a cell and are about to be bitten to death by a wolf inside, do you want to kill this wolf first to live, or do you want to think about how to get out of this cell? Of course, he wanted to kill the wolf first and live first before thinking about how to get out of this cell. Finally, Yang Dingtian pointed at Zhu Hongshue's heart and said word by word, Human, don't be too pretentious. Yes, sect head. Zhu Hongxue bowed and turned to leave, flying towards the direction of the north-central continent. Less than 4 hours after returning to the north-central continent, Zhu Hongxue met with Princess Mu Dan again. You want to reject me? Is that so? Mu Dan asked. Yes. Zhu Hongxue said. Mu Dan said. Then I might kill you. Unless you have a very reasonable reason. How did Yang Dingtian convince you? If his theory defeats mine, if it truly defeats mine and convinces me, then I won't kill you. If his theory isn't able to convince me, then I will kill you. Zhu Hongxue looked at Mu Dan and said, Sect head only asked me if I'm done with the matter at hand? Challenging the god of chaos is the highest justice. Do we have the qualifications to think about it now? Let's win the Great War first, then talk about other things. Mu Dan was stunned, her beautiful face twitched slightly, and then she floated away. A few hours later, Mu Dan appeared in front of Yang Dingtian. You convinced Zhu Hongxue, a very sharp and real persuasion. Mu Dan said. Now it's your turn to convince me. Yang Dingtian said. I don't have anything to convince you. Mu Dan said. If you convince me, I won't do anything to your loyal subordinates in the future, and I won't give them second-class evil spirits. If you don't convince me, I will continue. Yang Dingtian said. Is this a theoretical battle between the two of us? Yes. Mu Dan said. Yang Dingtian said. Okay, go ahead. Mu Dan said. Is there a god of chaos? Is the tragedy of this world's 200-year cycle controlled by him? Yang Dingtian nodded. Mu Dan said, then challenging fate, challenging the god of chaos, is it the highest justice? Everything you are doing now, is it helping the god of chaos to control everyone's fate? Tell me yes or no. If yes, then you have lost this theoretical battle. If no, please convince me. If you can't, you still lose. Yang Dingtian looked at Mu Dan and said, First, a digression. I know that you are not my wife, Dongfang Bingling. What is this so-called first-class evil spirit will of yours? I have a general idea of what it is. Mu Dan said, continue. Yang Dingtian said, let me tell you a few things. First, the demon king Wentian keeps saying that he wants to challenge fate, to challenge the god of chaos. He wants to mobilize all the power of the plane, repeat the Naga Empire, create another great nirvana, destroy this world completely, and perish together with the so-called god of chaos, right? Mu Dan's face twitched and said, yes, as long as he can win, he can do anything. Are you going to criticize us on this? No, I only talk about justice to those who are righteous. I never talk about idealists, just like how I never talk about justice to Yao Qi. Yang Dingtian said. Second, the demon king Wentian keeps saying that he wants to challenge fate. After feigning defeat 200 years ago, he started to make a huge plan. The underworld empire, the Naga Empire, and the human countries. They all look so awesome and powerful. However, how do you know that his actions are not under the control of the god of chaos? How can you be so sure that everything he does is not under the control of the god of chaos? Mu Dan's face instantly turned pale, and her entire body started to tremble. Yang Dingtian continued. Third, I have no understanding of the so-called god of chaos, so I will not express any opinions. Love or hate. I am not as narrow-minded as Wentian. You keep saying that you want to challenge the god of chaos. Then I want to ask, do you know who the god of chaos is? What is his surname? What is his name? If you don't know, then what are you talking about? Yang Dingtian raised his finger and said, Last point. No matter how noble they are all idiots who want to destroy the world. No matter how smart they are, no matter how deep their plans are, they are still idiots. Tell him that he will definitely understand the word idiot. Yang Dingtian sat down and looked at Mu Dan. I have finished. What do you think? Do you think that my theory won against you? Peony tightly gritted her jade teeth and nodded. She said, we won. Everyone says that you, Yang Dingtian, are talented. But are you actually very formidable? You can totally make me speechless. Yang Dingtian curled his lips and said, Wrong. The reason why I can win is because my heart has never changed, and my will has never changed. Do you think that just because I heard that I am a chess piece of the god, I will be in pain, lost, and lost? Please, don't be so pretentious. Alright, I won't play the lute to a cow. If you have nothing else to say and don't plan to kill me, you can leave. Mu Dan looked at Yang Dingtian and said, "Goodbye." Then, she disappeared in front of Yang Dingtian. 2 days later, Princess Mu Dan of the Evil Ways appeared in the Vulture Palace. Walingzi was extremely excited. He used the highest etiquette to welcome Princess Mu Dan's arrival. He used all means to express his loyalty. Then, Vulture knelt in front of Princess Mu Dan and begged, "Please give me a second-class evil spirit. The Vulture Palace will forever be loyal to His Majesty the Demon King." Mu Dan looked at Vulture and said, "Why do you want a second-class evil spirit?" Vulture said, "Because Wu Maji planted a third-class evil spirit in my body. I want to break away from her control over my life. Also, I want to become stronger and return the humiliation Yang Dingtian gave me double. I want to represent the evil ways and fight Yang Dingtian to the end." Mu Dan looked at Vulture for a long time and said, "Yes, I came to the Vulture Palace this time to bestow a second-class evil spirit. However, the person I want to bestow it to is not you, but someone else." "Who?" Vulture said with a trembling voice. "The person you imprisoned should have been the real master of the Vulture Palace." Mu Dan said. Vulture's delicate body trembled violently. The person Mu Dan was talking about was the spirit rabbit's grandfather. Chapter 781. Why? Vulture couldn't help but ask in a trembling voice. "Why can't you give me a second-class evil spirit?" Mu Dan looked at Vulture and said coldly, "We gave you a second-class evil spirit to make you the leader of the Legion of Doom. And then you will become the great lord of the entire chaotic continent in the future. Not for you to use public office to avenge private grudges." Vulture said, Then I won't use public office to avenge private grudges. I will obey all your orders. I just don't want my life to be in the hands of Yang Dingtian and Wu Maji." Mu Dan still shook her head and said, "No, you don't have the qualifications to be the leader of the Legion of Doom." Vulture burst into tears and cried, "I do. I'm a 1 in a billion celestial spiritualist. As long as I break through to the Grandmaster level, I have the potential to defeat a great Grandmaster. As long as I break through to the great Grandmaster level, I have the ability to destroy thousands of troops. I'm a 1 in a billion celestial spiritualist." Mu Dan looked at Vulture and shook her head. "Then you should continue to practice hard. In a few decades, when you are close to the semi-sage level, you will have the ability to destroy the world. You alone can fight against millions of troops and can turn the situation around." Vulture said, "But everything will be over by then. No matter how powerful I become, I can't wait until then." Mu Dan glanced at Vulture and didn't say anything else. Mu Dan didn't exaggerate at all about the ability of a celestial spiritualist. Others, including Yang Dingtian, underestimated the power of a celestial spiritualist. But Mu Dan knew that not to mention the semi-sage level, even a 9-star 9th-class celestial spiritualist's combat power was extremely amazing. They could summon all the elemental energy within a radius of hundreds or thousands of miles. It meant that they could summon hundreds of thousands of elemental soldiers with a wave of their hand. An extremely powerful celestial spiritualist could completely dominate the entire battlefield. Mu Dan didn't even know how Vulture could have the talent of a celestial spiritualist. In the words of Earth, she was like a bug. Of course, Mu Dan didn't understand Earth's language. In the later martial arts civilization, there were occasionally people with the talent of a celestial spiritualist, but their cultivation wasn't high throughout their lives. It was very rare for someone like Vulture to reach martial venerable level before the age of 20. It was a pity that the girl in front of him had already lost her patience and only wanted to get it over with. In fact, the Demon King Wolf already knew about Vulture in front of him. This would suppress her. STS Celestial Spiritualist. T. Est Demon Celestial Spiritualist. T. SS. TTS. But it teat effect. Teat. Of Bia. Teat. S is because the. Evidently, Spirit Vulture was going to play a very important role in Demon King Wentian's battle against the god of chaos. Mu Dan had asked Yongxi Wentian to bring Vulture back to the Little Western Paradise for protection. Yongxi Wentian said no. It was best to let her grow as a celestial spiritualist. As long as she didn't die and continued to hate Yang Dingtian, that was the most important thing. Moreover, Vulture shouldn't be too strong now. Otherwise, Yang Dingtian would really try to kill her. Vulture didn't have any room to play in this war of destruction. The Temple of Annihilation would only use Vulture a long time later. Vulture didn't know how important she was to the Demon King Wentian. She was angry and disappointed because of Mu Dan's rejection. Walingzi was filled with uneasiness. Mu Dan actually wanted to bestow a second-class evil spirit to that bastard, Wu Daozi. How terrible was that? He didn't have a spiritual child. After killing the parents of this vile spawn with great difficulty, he crippled this vile spawn. The reason why he didn't kill him was more because of his hatred and pranks. At that time, this bastard's father was the heir of the Vulture Palace. How glorious was that? How much shadow did it bring to him? Now his son couldn't live and couldn't die. How happy was that? However, at this time, Walingzi regretted it. Why didn't he kill this bastard? In fact, when the spirit rabbit was married to Yang Dingtian, he had already thought of killing this vile spawn. But he thought that holding him in his hands was also a hostage. If Spirit Rabbit was favored and wanted to take revenge on the Vulture Palace, because her grandfather was in his hands, she wouldn't shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. Therefore, Spirit Rabbit's grandfather came back from the gates of hell. Now Walingzi regretted it very much. Why didn't he kill that bastard? He hurriedly came to pay his respects to Peony and said in a hoarse voice, "My Spirit Vulture Palace, from top to bottom, still pledged allegiance to the Devil King. Why did the princess still bestow a second-grade evil spirit to that traitor?" Mu Dan said slowly, "Because in our hearts, he is the real heir of the Vulture Palace, and you are just a villain who betrayed the evil ways at the critical moment of the Doomsday War." Walingzi's face suddenly twitched, and he said hoarsely, But I am the one who controls the Vulture Palace now. Princess, aren't you afraid that you will force me to Yang Dingtian's side by doing this?" Mu Dan looked at Walingzi and sneered. "The power of your Vulture Palace is not worth mentioning in our eyes. You don't know how powerful our Legion of Doom is. You don't know that several of the most powerful planes in the world have fallen into our hands. Your mere Vulture Palace is nothing in my eyes." Then Mu Dan continued, "Moreover, in our eyes, you are not a qualified commander at all. You are as timid as a mouse, greedy for life and afraid of death. In the face of Yang Dingtian, you are so cowardly. You said that the Vulture Palace is in your hands. As long as we bestow the second-class evil spirit to Wu Daozi and kill you, Wu Daozi can become the new master of the Vulture Palace, isn't it? I think your reputation in the Vulture Palace is not good." Walingzi's face suddenly changed dramatically. Mu Dan immediately said the most terrible thing in his heart. His ruddy face instantly turned pale. Then, the light in his eyes changed. Finally he said coldly, "Princess, you are now in our Vulture Palace. You are forcing us like this. Aren't you afraid that a cornered dog will jump over the wall and be harmed?" Mu Dan smiled and said, "You mean you want to kill me?" Walingzi said with a trembling voice, "I didn't say that." Mu Dan's beautiful face showed an incomparably gorgeous smile and said, "You mean, you want to kill me and then cooperate with Yang Dingtian?" Walingzi's lips kept trembling and said, "I didn't say that, but you must never force a person into a dead end." Mu Dan's eyes turned cold and said coldly, "Can you kill me? You and everyone in the Vulture Palace can't kill me. On the contrary, it will be easy for us to kill you." Walingzi suddenly trembled. His whole body seemed to have been pulled out of his skeleton. He almost directly collapsed to the ground. Suddenly, Walingzi knelt down and kowtowed. "Princess, please forgive my disrespect on account of my old age and dizziness. 200 years ago, my brain was muddled. That's why I betrayed the evil ways. Please spare my life. Spare my life. In the future, I will be an ox and a horse. I will be loyal to His Majesty the Demon King. Please spare my life." Then, Walingzi kowtowed with all his might. His originally white and fat forehead was instantly bleeding. His white hair and youthful complexion had completely disappeared. Mu Dan looked at him coldly and said, "Don't worry. We won't kill you. We can let you redeem yourself." Wolingzi cried with all his might and said with a trembling voice, "Thank you, Princess. Thank you, His Majesty the Demon King." Peony also gasped in admiration in her heart. There's actually such a weirdo in this world. A semi-sage level expert. He's one of the 5 semi-sage level experts in the human countries at present. But he's actually so cowardly. He's so greedy for life. It's truly rare in the world. Mu Dan looked at Wolingzi, who was kneeling on the ground, and laughed mockingly. Then she turned and left. Wolingzi directly collapsed to the ground. He kept muttering, "What do I do? What do I do?" Mu Dan met the true successor of the Vulture Palace, Wu Daozi, in a cave. Everyone in the Vulture Palace had the surname Ling. However, every generation of direct descendants of the palace master had the surname Wu. However, after Wolingzi usurped the position of palace master, this tradition was broken. Therefore, although the position of palace master was later given to Ling Chuzi still had the surname Ling. Wolingzi was also hesitating whether to pass the surname Wu to the vulture. It had been more than half a year since the spirit rabbit got married. Wu Daozi was still alive. His sea of qi was destroyed, and so were his meridians. He looked like he could die at any time, but he had such a tenacious vitality. He was only 1 generation younger than Wolingzi. This year, he was 100 years older than Wolingzi. He had been imprisoned for decades. It was really a miracle that he was still alive. At that time, after Wolingzi usurped the throne, he did not immediately kill Wu Daozi's parents. Instead, he gradually waited until his power was stable. Then, he raised his butcher's knife and killed almost all the direct descendants of the Vulture Palace one after another. Mu Dan looked at his incomparably old and weak figure and asked, "How can you live until now?" Wu Daozi coughed with all his might, as if his lungs were about to be coughed out. Using all his strength, he said, Because Wu Lingzi gave me the life-continuing pill every year. A pill refined from living people. He didn't want me to die, so he kept torturing me." Mu Dan said, "What was your cultivation before your cultivation was destroyed?" Wu Daozi coughed violently and said, "At that time, when my parents were killed, they risked their lives to let me escape from the Vulture Palace. After that, I cultivated outside and gave birth to children outside. I cultivated desperately to make myself stronger. It was all for revenge, and to take back the position of the Vulture Palace. When I was over 100 years old, my cultivation had reached the 9th level of the 9 Stars Great Grandmaster. Wolingzi was afraid. Although I hid my name, he still found me. He almost killed my whole family, destroyed my cultivation, and imprisoned my remaining direct descendants in the Vulture Palace. He killed them one by one in the cruelest way in front of me. After decades of killing, only my poor little granddaughter Tu-er and I are left. A 9 Stars Great Grandmaster was only 1 step away from the sage to be. It was equivalent to Zhu Qingzhu's cultivation. No wonder Wolingzi couldn't sit still. He, who had never left the Vulture Palace, had traveled tens of thousands of miles to get rid of Wu Daozi. Mu Dan said, "I am Princess Mu Dan of the Temple of Annihilation of Evil Ways. If I help you recover your cultivation and save you from hell, will you be loyal to me and the Temple of Annihilation?" The old man Wu Daozi coughed violently and said, I am a direct descendant of the Vulture Palace. I have always been loyal to the Temple of Annihilation. There is no such thing as whether I am willing or not. Well, please remember that once I give you the 2nd-class evil spirit energy, your life and death will be in my hands, Mu Dan said. The old man Wu Daozi said, "If it weren't for the hatred in my heart, I would have already given up on life and death." "Well, I hope you can remember this," Mu Dan said. Then, a green 1st-class evil spirit tree slowly grew from the palm of her hand. On the first branch, there was already a face, which was Lung Ao. The remaining 4 branches were all empty. Mu Dan grabbed the 2nd-class evil spirit branch and gently pulled it. In an instant, the 2nd-class evil spirit was suddenly elongated. Whoosh! The The second-class evil spirit's branch was thrown into Wu Dozi's head. In an instant, the second-class evil spirit energy turned into thousands of wisps and rushed into Wu Dozi's head. His incomparably old head released a bright light. Then his face was changing. The wrinkles that were as old as tree bark disappeared, and smooth and compact skin and muscles grew quickly. The old and withered white hair quickly became glossy and black. The incomparably old face, which could hardly be seen clearly, instantly became handsome and infinitely young. The teeth that had been lost long ago all grew out one by one. Then countless second-class evil spirit energy quickly rushed into his body. The withered body that was like a branch quickly became robust and plump. His destroyed profound veins were being repaired inch by inch at lightning speed. The destroyed chi sea was filled up piece by piece. Boom, boom, boom. Then the huge mountain he was on began to collapse completely. The huge mountain of several thousand meters disappeared completely in an instant. Then, the entire Vulture Palace, and even the entire southern barbarian continent, began to tremble violently. Monstrous tsunamis surged on the surrounding sea. Countless black vultures, as if they had received a terrible fright, fled frantically like dark clouds. The seabed around the southern barbarian continent was originally incomparably fragile. At this time, it triggered a huge underwater earthquake. Terrifying tsunamis madly surged in all directions. At the same time, all the profound energy within a few hundred miles frantically rushed into Wu Dozi's withered body. At this time, Wu Dozi's heaven and earth reaction when he devoured the second-class evil spirit was 10 times, or 100 times that of Lung Ao and Ling Wu. Because his body's original cultivation was a 9-star 9th-grade grandmaster, which was 100 times or 1,000 times that of Lung Ao and Ling Wu. Walingzi, who was on a mountain peak not far away, looked on helplessly as a 3,000-meter-tall mountain completely collapsed. His face was filled with utter despair. After the entire mountain had completely collapsed, it became a flat land. A man and a woman stood tall among it. The woman was Mudan. The man, who was handsome and beautiful, was as clear as a god. He was the true successor of the Vulture Palace, the grandfather of the spirit rabbit Wu Dozi. A new half-sage was born from this. Chapter 782. What was an evil spirit? This was a very important question for Yang Dingtian. As far as he was concerned, the evil spirit energy had two main characteristics. The first characteristic was that it could crazily break through the cultivation of the sea of qi in a short time. The second characteristic was that it was a completely independent life with an almost abnormal vitality. Moreover, according to the analysis of many people who activated the evil spirit and became powerful, first of all, it was not the evil spirit itself that had so much energy that it could make Wu Yuming break through from a 9-star 9th-level grandmaster to a half-saint, and make Lung Ao break through from a low-level grandmaster to a 9-star 9th-level grandmaster. Instead, it was the moment when the evil spirit was parasitic in the body. It crazily devoured all the energy around it. In a very short time, it devoured an astronomical amount of qi energy, built the entire sea of qi, and made an amazing breakthrough in cultivation in a very short time. Therefore, a deeper analysis was needed. The two characteristics of the evil spirit were that it was almost immortal and had a powerful devouring ability. Moreover, it was certain that the evil spirit energy did not seem to exist before the last great war of extinction. At that time, the soul-devouring qi was the most evil and high-level energy in the entire evil ways. It was not until recent years that the evil spirit energy emerged in large quantities in this world. Could it be inferred that the demon king Wentian was the first owner of this evil spirit energy? Moreover, he regarded the evil spirit energy as a trump card to challenge the god of chaos. For this reason, he did not hesitate to feign defeat in the Great War of Extinction. Yang Dingtian clearly knew that if he wanted to defeat the demon king Wentian, he had to completely destroy the entire evil ways. The key was to understand and master the evil spirit and finally destroy it. The second half-saint expert appeared in the Vulture Palace. However, the people in the Vulture Palace were not happy at all. Instead, they fell into extreme uneasiness. Wu Lingzi seemed to have completely turned into a tortoise, completely staying in his own thatched hut. He did not say anything, nor did he do anything. He also did not greet Princess Peony. The vulture was the same. He stayed in his room all the time, and did not take a step out. All the experts of the spiritual vulture palace fell into a state of panic. Everyone was watching. No one dared to act rashly. They didn't even dare to speak loudly. Wulingzi was more than 200 years old, and had accumulated his power for a long time. Moreover, all of Wulingzi's experts and disciples were born during Wulingzi's era. Therefore, although he knew that Wulingzi had usurped the throne, he did not feel anything. Although they knew that Wu Daozi represented the direct power of the Vulture Palace, the people of the Vulture Palace did not have any special feelings for him. The only thing everyone in the Vulture Palace had was mixed feelings about Wulingzi. Of course, these complex emotions were mostly fear and dissatisfaction. After Wu Daozi had broken through to the half-saint realm, he hadn't done anything. He hadn't gone to seek revenge on Wulingzi, nor had he tried to rope in anyone from the Vulture Palace. It was as if he was invisible. However, he was no longer imprisoned in the cave like before, living a life worse than death. Now, no matter where he went in the Vulture Palace, almost everyone retreated in fear and respect. In short, no matter what, Wu Daozi had directly become the second person in the Vulture Palace, second only to Wulingzi. Moreover, it was very likely that he would go against the current and take back his own position. "Your Highness, what should I do now?" Wu Daozi asked. Mu Dan said, "You don't need to do anything now. When I need you to do something, I'll tell you." Wu Daozi bowed and said, "Yes, Your Highness." Mu Dan turned slightly and said, "Then, I'll take my leave." "Farewell, Your Highness," Wu Daozi said. Mu Dan left the Vulture Palace with Lung Ao. Lung Ao asked, "Who should we give the third second-class evil spirit to?" Mu Dan said, "You'll know when you see it." 5 days later, Yang Dingtian rode on a demon eagle and returned to the Skull Hall in the Forbidden Continent's sea area. Because in a few days, the Council of Light's cultivation group would finish the first stage of cultivation. In the floating palace at the end of the first world, everyone would face a powerful breakthrough. In fact, although the first hard rock continent was the simplest, the breakthrough it brought was almost the biggest. After 1 day and 2 nights, Yang Dingtian appeared in the Skull Hall. At this moment, the 40-odd experts of the Radiant Parliament, who were bitterly cultivating in the main hall, were in pretty good condition. They were exhausted to the extreme, and almost all of them had lost weight. Their faces were filled with extreme exhaustion, and even despair. But at least none of them had fallen into the deep space in the illusion. 4 days later, as expected, the group of Dishi Bian, Ling Wu, and Wu Maji was the first to reach the end of the first world. Because Yang Dingtian saw an expression of incomparable enjoyment on their faces. It was the feeling of being baptized by incomparably dense, profound energy. At the same time, in reality, a few powerful energy light pillars suddenly shot down from the dome of the Skull Hall and directly entered the bodies of the 3 people. This should be the secret of the dense, profound energy in the floating palace in the illusion. In the Forbidden Continent's illusion, those floating palaces all possessed astonishingly dense and pure, profound energy. In reality, there really was such astonishing, profound energy in reality, which provided everyone with a breakthrough in their cultivation. It was just that the profound energy was actually injected into everyone's body with such precision. It was really amazing. Not long after, Dongfang Minmi's group also entered the floating palace. Next was the 3rd group, the 4th group, the 5th group. Finally, on the 25th day of cultivation in the Forbidden Continent's illusion, the last group also reached the end. Now, Yang Dingtian could be sure that there would be more than one floating palace at the northern end of the hard rock continent. While they were absorbing profound energy in the floating palace, Yang Dingtian closely observed everyone's reaction and counted the number of times they broke through. First was Dishi Bian. When she left the Ghost Hell region, she was a 7-star level 8 Great Grandmaster. At this time, more than a year had passed since she started cultivating in the Ghost Hell region. Before she came to the Forbidden Continent to cultivate, her cultivation was already a 9-star level 1 Great Grandmaster. Young Dingtian noticed that she had broken through the first stage of the Forbidden Continent's hard rock plains twice. Therefore, she was already a 9-star level 3 Great Grandmaster. As for Wu Maji, she was a 7-star level 1 Great Grandmaster when she left the Ghost Hell region. Before she came to the Forbidden Continent's illusion to cultivate, she was an 8-star level 8 Great Grandmaster. After the end of the Hard Rock Continent, she had broken through 4 times. Therefore, she was already a 9-star level 2 Great Grandmaster. Before Ling Wu came to the Forbidden Continent's illusion, she was an 8-star level 9 Great Grandmaster. She had also broken through 4 times. Therefore, she was already a 9-star level 3 Great Grandmaster. There was also his master Dongfang Minmi. When he obtained Lung Qingchen's body, he was only a beginner Great Grandmaster. During these years, he was incomparably busy. Therefore, he had very little time to cultivate. However, almost 3 years had passed since his resurrection. Before he came to the Forbidden Continent's illusion, his cultivation was a 3-star level 5 Great Grandmaster. As for the first stage of cultivation in the Hard Rock Continent, he had broken through 2 times and became a 5-star level 1 Great Grandmaster. Of course, there was also good news. Qiu Wanjie had already broken through to the 9-star level 9 Great Grandmaster. He was only half a step away from becoming a Great Grandmaster. After leaving the Forbidden Continent's illusion, Yang Dingtian would probably be able to help him break through to become a Great Grandmaster. As for the others, after the first stage of cultivation in the Hard Rock Continent, all of them had huge breakthroughs. It was believed that after the 4 stages of cultivation in the Forbidden Continent ended, there would be a few more Great Grandmaster experts in the Council of Light. After everyone had broken through, they passed through the long illusory void and entered the second world, the lava plains. It was a lava plains that was a few 100,000 miles wide. This stage should be the most difficult one of all. Moreover, the ice attribute experts played a crucial role in this stage. Of course, the number of ice attribute experts in the Council of Light was less than half. Therefore, in the second stage of cultivation, it was impossible to completely rely on the ice attribute experts' solidified lava to create a path. Moreover, the fire attribute experts couldn't lose the opportunity to cultivate. Therefore, the Council of Light spent an astronomical amount of money in the Sky Demon City to purchase many ice attribute mystic talismans. Although they weren't as precious as the lightning attribute mystic talismans, the price of each ice attribute mystic talisman was similarly astronomical. Moreover, the efficiency of mystic chi was rather low. In order to ensure that they successfully passed the second stage, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to prepare a lot of unfreezing water for the fire attribute experts. Then, he used the energy of the ice attribute mystic talismans to maintain the temperature of the unfreezing water. Then, he used the unfreezing water to create a path through the solidified lava. The entire process was a huge waste of mystic chi for the fire attribute experts. However, this was cultivation, and there was no need to be afraid of waste. At the beginning of the lava plains, Yang Dingtian clearly saw everyone's pain and hardship. In the beginning, they were completely drenched in sweat. Then there was no sweat at all. If they didn't replenish their elixirs in time, and if they didn't circulate their mystic chi to resist the terrifying high temperature, they would have died from dehydration. However, they were fully prepared in the end. Therefore, it looked very shocking. However, there wasn't any danger in the end. Moreover, after 3 days, more than a dozen groups of cultivation had entered a steady progress. The 3 days now were equivalent to a month. Dishibian, Wu Maji, and Ling Wu were considered to be in the best condition. The others had already lost a lot of weight. The second stage, the lava plains, was a few 100,000 miles wide. At that time, Yang Dingtian, King Demon Vulture, and Ling Bai's team had walked for a full year in the Taboo Continent's illusory realm. In reality, it had also been a full month. It was very obvious that these dozen groups had also taken around this time. Perhaps it was slightly earlier. Yang Dingtian stayed in the Skull Hall for another 3 to 4 days. Chapter 783. Mudan pays her respects to martial uncle Dugu. Mudan bowed towards Duga Xiao. Duga Xiao bowed and said, Temple of Blood's Duga Xiao pays his respects to Princess Mudan. I don't dare to. Mudan replied. Duga Xiao said, Princess Mudan, why are you looking for me? Mudan said, I heard that martial uncle Dugu has betrothed both of your daughters to Yang Dingtian. Duga Xiao said, Fengwu and Aoshuang? Princess Mudan might not know about this. Firstly, Aoshuang isn't my daughter, and I believe you know about this as well. Furthermore, she is like an enemy to me, and has completely cut off all ties with me. Dugu Fengwu did have an ill-fated relationship with Yang Dingtian, and she was struck by Crown Prince Li Ming's emissary, from the Temple of Annihilation, with the soul-devouring devil mystic. She is now dead. This was probably the world's most open and honest way of lying through one's teeth. The Mudan in front of him was Dongfang Bingling. When Yang Dingtian used the crystal tears to save Dugu Fengwu, Dongfang Bingling was watching from the side. Now Duga Xiao actually said that Dugu Fengwu was already dead. Therefore, there was no lie in this world that was more honest than this. Mudan smiled slightly, and didn't say anything. She only smiled and said, Master also knows that as one of the leaders of the evil ways, if you were to become in-laws with the Tiando League, it would go against our sacred hall's standpoint. Duga Xiao said, Princess Mudan is here for this matter? Mudan shook her head and said, Senior Dugu knows that His Majesty, the Demon King, is an intelligent man. Close to 200 years ago, he intentionally pretended to be defeated, but it was all for today. Furthermore, His Majesty, the Demon King, has the ability to truly nurture the true evil spirit energy within these 200 years. This is the highest grade of energy in the universe. You should know that the primal chaos world seems to have been cursed, and the mystic chi energy in the world is no longer enough. 500 years ago, no saint experts no longer appeared. This isn't because people's talents have deteriorated, but because the energy in the world has suddenly withered. However, the evil spirit energy created by His Majesty the Demon King is able to break through this comfort and allow humans to break through the realm of saint. Duga Xiao said, Duga Mudan, is it to bestow me the evil energy? Mudan said, My second-class evil energy is not qualified to bestow it to you. You may know that the Demon King and the Devil Queen share a primordial evil spirit, and can bestow first-class evil spirits to 5 people. Now that 4 of them have masters, there is only one first-class evil spirit left. His Majesty, the Demon King, thinks that Senior Dugu is one of the most outstanding people in the history of the evil ways, so he wants to bestow this first-class evil spirit to you. Duga Xiao said, A few days ago, there was an additional half-step saint expert in the human countries. It should be Princess Mudan's gift. Mudan smiled and said, Yes, it was Wu Daozi from the Vulture Palace. But in his lifetime, he can only be a half-step saint expert. Having a first-class evil spirit, he can break through to the saint realm. Therefore, the 5 of us who have first-class evil spirits, as well as the Demon King and the Devil Queen, can all advance to the saint realm. Duga Xiao said, Then your subject must really thank His Majesty, the Demon King, for his great kindness. Mudan said, The Temple of Blood's masters have been His Majesty, the Demon King's most loyal subjects for generations. This is what you deserve. Duga Xiao smiled and said, But I heard that once a first-class evil spirit is planted, it will completely lose its own will, just like Princess Mudan. That's because a first-class evil spirit has its own will. Although your body is Dongfang Bingling's, she has already become the evil spirit's puppet. Princess Mudan trembled slightly and said, But Dongfang Bingling's intelligence, feelings, and emotions are still there. It's just that her will has been suppressed. Just this price alone, in exchange for the realm of a saint expert, isn't it worth it? Duga Xiao smiled and said, Whether it's worth it or not depends on the person. To some people, they'd rather die than lose their freedom. The owner of your body is like that. It's just that she's powerless to resist. Therefore, if I can reject it, I'll still reject it. Mudan's expression changed slightly and said, Martial Uncle Dugu, don't you think this is too selfish? Duga Xiao said, Why do you say so? Mu Dan said. You also know that this is the final battle to destroy the world. The Tiando League will completely disappear. Yang Dingtian will also be the last master of the Tiando League. In 10 years, the Temple of Annihilation will rule over the entire human countries and establish an unprecedented unified empire. In less than 200 years, the Temple of Annihilation will rule over the Snake People Empire that has descendants of half-gods. In less than 500 years, the Temple of Annihilation will rule over the Western Kingdom Empire that has many descendants of half-gods. When that time comes, all the planes in the primal chaos world will be in the hands of the Temple of Annihilation. If you reject the first-class evil spirit, then where will you place the Temple of Blood? Where will the Temple of Blood's position be in the future primal chaos empire? Are you going to let the Temple of Blood's leadership fall? Duga Xiao was silent for a moment before he smiled and said, Princess Mu Dan, I've already lost my bloodline. My Temple of Blood has no more successors. From this point onward, the Temple of Blood will be gone. Since the Temple of Blood is going to be wiped out, what's the point of falling? The moment he said this, Princess Mu Dan's expression changed drastically. She didn't expect that Duga Xiao would be so resolute. Duga Xiao bowed and said, Please inform His Majesty the Demon King that I, Duga Xiao, am still willing to serve and be loyal to the Temple of Annihilation, but I'm the last generation. Princess Mu Dan looked at Duga Xiao for a long time before she said indifferently, I will inform His Majesty the Demon King. As for how His Majesty will deal with this, we can only leave it to fate. I won't see you off, Duga Xiao said. What a handsome middle-aged man. He had a graceful bearing that didn't lose out to Duga Xiao and Dongfang Minmi. His disposition was even a combination of Duga Xiao and Dongfang Minmi. This was practically the most outstanding man Yang Dingtian had ever seen. Vulture Palace, Wu Daozi, greets the leader of the Tiando League, His Excellency Yang Dingtian. Wu Daozi bowed elegantly. Yang Dingtian was stunned and almost lost his reaction for a moment. Wu Daozi, Spirit Rabbit's grandfather, Wu Daozi? Shouldn't he be an old man, begging for life, begging for death but unable to do so? The man in front of him, who had a more imposing bearing than Zhu Qingzhu, was actually Wu Daozi? Soon Yang Dingtian understood. He knew who Princess Mu Dan had bestowed the second-grade evil spirit to. He also knew about the tsunami and earthquake in the southern barbarian continent 2 days ago. A half-step saint expert, another half-step saint expert, had appeared in the human countries. Instantly, Yang Dingtian felt bitter in his heart. This Wu Daozi was originally the most important part of his plan to usurp the Vulture Palace. After he broke through to the half-saint level, he would force Wolingzi to hand over Spirit Rabbit's grandfather, Wu Daozi, and then find a way to heal his injuries and restore his cultivation. Then, Yang Dingtian would destroy Wolingzi and let Wu Daozi succeed as the leader of the Vulture Palace. Then, the Vulture Palace would truly join the Council of Light. The 200,000-strong Black Vulture Army would completely become the most powerful aerial army of the Council of Light. Who would have thought that this plan would be destroyed before it could even begin? Princess Peony would beat him to it. To be honest, Yang Dingtian once thought that Mu Dan might bestow the second-grade evil spirit to the Vulture Palace. However, he really didn't expect that it would be given to Wu Daozi. Grandson-in-law Yang Dingtian pays his respects to Senior Wu Daozi. Yang Dingtian bowed and said, Are you here to see Spirit Rabbit? She is currently studying at the Tianqi Academy in Xijing. She is very talented and is very obsessed with martial arts. Wu Daozi smiled and said, I have heard that Sect Master Yang has taken very good care of my granddaughter. Not only has she recovered her beautiful appearance, but her cultivation has also advanced by leaps and bounds. More importantly, although she was forced to marry you by Wolingzi, you did not offend her at all. Here, this old man solemnly thanks Sect Master Yang for his kindness. After that, Wu Daozi bowed deeply again, his whole body at a 90-degree angle. Of course, Yang Dingtian smiled and said, Spirit Rabbit is kind and intelligent. Anyone will take pity on her. Then Yang Dingtian asked, Senior, may I ask why you are here? Wu Daozi said, Sect Master Yang should probably know that my Vulture Palace was originally the leader of the evil ways, the mainstay of the Temple of Annihilation. It was Wuxia who usurped the position of Palace Master and betrayed the evil ways. Yang Dingtian said, I have heard of it. Wu Daozi said, loyalty is the most basic quality of us martial artists. My father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather have been loyal to His Majesty the Demon King for generations. As a direct descendant of the Vulture Palace, I should be the same. Soon, I should succeed the position of Vulture Palace Master again. So at that time, the Vulture Palace will still be loyal to His Majesty the Demon King. Please forgive me, Sect Master Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian forced a smile, unable to answer hypocritically. Wu Daozi said, although we will be in a hostile position at that time, I still admire Sect Master Yang Dingtian from the bottom of my heart. At that time, we will serve different masters. If we meet on the battlefield, although it will be sad, there is no other choice. I hope Sect Master Yang can understand. Yang Dingtian's smile became more forced, and then he nodded. Wu Daozi said, but I promise that before the Doomsday War begins, before the Temple of Annihilation orders, my Vulture Palace will never infringe on any of the interests of Sect Master Yang Dingtian and the Council of Light. Thank you, Yang Dingtian said. Wu Daozi said, Sect Master Yang also knows that Spirit Rabbit is my granddaughter and my only direct successor. I will die one day, and she will become the only successor of the Vulture Palace in the future. As the saying goes, good and evil cannot coexist. So I think it should be difficult for Spirit Rabbit to continue to be your wife. Otherwise, it would be a betrayal of the Vulture Palace to His Majesty the Demon King. Moreover, Spirit Rabbit married Sect Master Yang on that day, because Wuxia forced her to do so. I believe you think so too. So you have never violated my granddaughter Spirit Rabbit. Now she is still a virgin, so this marriage should be unworthy of the name. Then, this old man asks Sect Master Yang to give us a letter of divorce, so that you and I can clear our positions. Yang Dingtian's eyes suddenly shrank. Was the Vulture Palace's shamelessness in the same vein? Wuxia's shamelessness was from the inside out. Wu Daozi in front of him was solemn on the surface, but he was still despicable and shameless in his heart. That day, when Yang Dingtian married Spirit Rabbit, Wu Daozi couldn't ask for anything more. But when Su Hong married Spirit Rabbit, not only did she escape from the sea of bitterness, but she also completely avoided the fate of destruction. At that time, although she ate poisonous mushrooms, her face was scary. However, her figure was becoming more and more attractive, and many men in the Vulture Palace had already set their eyes on her. As long as she stayed in the Vulture Palace, one day, she, Spirit Rabbit, would suffer a disaster and be humiliated by the beasts of the Vulture Palace. Wu Daozi's last bloodline couldn't be saved. Now, Wu Daozi obtained a second-class evil spirit and broke through to the half-saint realm, and he said that it was unjustified, and that it was Wuxia who forced him to do so. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and said, Senior Wu Daozi, since you have said so, then let's be more direct. Yes, I married Spirit Rabbit because of the Vulture Palace. I wanted to completely pull the Vulture Palace into the Council of Light. As for you, I basically have the idea that you are a rare commodity worth hoarding. I want to save you, restore your cultivation, and let you replace Wuxia as the master of the spiritual Vulture Palace. Moreover, you will become a hardcore member of the Radiant Parliament. After Wu Daozi heard it, he just smiled gently and didn't say that Yang Dingtian was indulging in wild fantasies. Yang Dingtian said, Now of course, I don't have such fantasies, so of course, there is no reason to keep Spirit Rabbit. So I can agree to this request of separation. But, first of all, Spirit Rabbit has to agree to the separation. If she is willing to stay in the Council of Light and stay by my side, then no one can force her. Wu Daozi smiled and said, Sect Master Yang Dingtian, is it necessary? I am Spirit Rabbit's elder, and I have the right to decide everything about her. Yang Dingtian said, There is also a saying in the chaotic world, follow the father at home, and follow the husband when married. Therefore, I should be the one to make the decision regarding her. Wu Daozi said, That's right. So I just asked for your opinion, and Sect Master Yang has already agreed to the separation. Yang Dingtian said, Yes, I agreed. But I choose to return this decision to Spirit Rabbit. If she says to separate, then she will separate. If she says to stay, then she will stay. Wu Daozi's eyes narrowed slightly, and suddenly his eyes became long and narrow. He said, Sect Master Yang, it seems that you are very confident in letting Spirit Rabbit stay? Yang Dingtian didn't say anything. He was indeed very confident, although his contact with Spirit Rabbit was very, very short, and they didn't have any feelings for each other. However, Lingbai was here, and Spirit Rabbit had a deep relationship with her. Moreover, Spirit Rabbit was studying in Xijing, and many people were very good to her, especially Qin Mingli, who seemed to treat her as a sister, and also as a daughter. Moreover, the Heavenly Edict Academy's theory on evil ways in the Tiando League was very thorough. Spirit Rabbit had been studying in the Heavenly Edict Academy for almost a year, and her spiritual thoughts had been baptized for a long time. She should have an absolute understanding of good and evil, and she should have an absolute hatred for the darkness of the Vulture Palace. Therefore, she should have an absolute yearning for justice and light at this time. Wu Daozi said, Well, then I'll have to trouble Sect Master Yang to come with me to the Heavenly Edict Academy in Xijing. We will let Spirit Rabbit decide for herself whether to stay or leave. A moment later, the two flew toward Xijing. Chapter 784. When Yang Dingtian unified the entire West Continent, the Heavenly Edict Academy had already begun. Therefore, more than 3 years had passed since then. The Heavenly Edict Academy had risen at an unimaginable speed. The Council of Light had invested everything in building the Heavenly Edict Academy. The resources it possessed far exceeded that of any other sect in this world. Moreover, compared to the various large sects, the Heavenly Edict Academy was undoubtedly fairer. There was no sectarian bias. As long as one was talented and capable, even if one's status was low, one could still rise. Moreover, although martial arts were still mainstream in the Heavenly Edict Academy, it was no longer everything. There were also crystal dynamics, navigation, spiritual arts, mystical studies, demon studies, political studies, economics, and so on. In the past, martial arts were everything. However, this situation had undoubtedly changed. Currently, the human countries lacked martial arts experts the most. Instead, they lacked middle and low-level officials, generals, and so on. Therefore, it was very common for people with higher cultivation to be led by people with lower cultivation. The concept of martial arts being first and supreme had gradually changed. Moreover, the establishment of the Heavenly Edict Academy had another strategic effect, which was to eliminate sectarian bias. Once one entered the Heavenly Edict Academy, it would be very difficult to distinguish between Cloud Sky City, Divine Weapons Mountain Villa, and Northwest Qin City. The Tiando League and the Council of Light had become symbols of unity. Those who entered the Heavenly Edict Academy would instinctively feel that they were part of the Tiando League, and not just part of the Northwest Qin City or Cloud Sky City. Another effect was the impact on one's mind. Therefore, it was certain that the Heavenly Edict Academy's role in the future would be even more immeasurable. It would completely unite the entire chaotic world. The Heavenly Edict Academy's Central Capital Division and East Continent Division were about to be completed and would be activated soon. When the time came, more young martial artists would enter the Heavenly Edict Academy to study. It would provide a steady stream of talents for the Tiando League. The Spirit Rabbit was unquestionably the #1 beauty of the Heavenly Edict Academy. She was the dream lover of all the male students in the Heavenly Edict Academy. She had a nickname in the Heavenly Edict Academy, the Angel. Because of her exquisite beauty, she was very quiet, but definitely not cold. She was reserved, but never stingy with her smiles. Countless male students were captivated by her. Usually, such a girl would become the public enemy of all women. Moreover, it just so happened that she was absolutely welcomed and loved by the female disciples of Heavenly Revelation Academy. Practically all the female disciples instinctively wanted to protect her. In the Heavenly Edict Academy, and even in the West Capital, almost no one knew her identity. Everyone only knew that the Western Capital City Lord, Qin Mengli, took great care of Ling Tu, or as if she was her own younger sister. In the Heavenly Enlightenment Academy, the Spirit Rabbit seemed to have made up for all the joy it had missed in the past 10 years. Furthermore, Yang Dingtian had promised that there would be a day when he would rescue his grandfather and bring him to the central capital to live together with him. Furthermore, her cultivation speed was also extremely fast. Just over a month ago, she had broken through to the martial mystic realm. Of course, this level of cultivation was nothing in the Heavenly Edict Academy. However, before she entered the Heavenly Edict Academy, she was merely a Xian martial artist. Therefore, even though her current cultivation wasn't ranked anywhere in the Heavenly Awakening Academy, she was still quite strong. This was because many people said that she was the most talented person in the entire Heavenly Awakening Academy. Her cultivation speed seemed to be second only to Sect Master Yang Dingtian. As for Sect Master Yang Dingtian, he was undoubtedly a legendary figure. He was only 25 years old and had only started cultivating martial arts for a little over 5 years. However, he was already the strongest person in the entire Tiando League. Even though he wasn't the strongest person in the world, Queen Hai Xian of the Serpentine Empire, Walingzi of the Vulture Palace, and Wu Yu of the Netherworld Sea had all surpassed Sect Master Yang Dingtian in terms of cultivation. However, almost everyone in the Heavenly Awakening Academy believed that Sect Master Yang Dingtian would undoubtedly become the strongest person in the world within 5 or perhaps 3 years. In fact, no one in the entire Tiando League had any doubts about this day. Ling Tuer's rapid cultivation speed made everyone see another rising star. Therefore, even though all the instructors in the Heavenly Awakening Academy didn't know about Ling Tu's identity, including some Grandmaster instructors, all of them were devoted to her cultivation. However, almost all the teachers were doing their best to nurture the Spirit Rabbit. They hoped that within a few years, the Spirit Rabbit would be able to stand out in the Radiant Parliament. On this day, Ling Tu had finished her class. As usual, she was writing the Heavenly Awakening Academy's newspaper with a few classmates. Now the Council of Light didn't only have one newspaper, the Chaos Times. There were almost 10 newspapers in total. Of course, all of these newspapers were currently under the guidance and management of the Council of Light. The Heavenly Awakening Academy's newspaper couldn't be considered a complete newspaper because it was only circulated within the Academy. It was all written by the Academy's disciples. Ling Tu wasn't in charge of writing. She was in charge of drawing and designing the layout. In fact, these weren't her only hobbies. She liked many other things. For example, cooking, studying monsters, and so on. Although her cultivation speed had increased by leaps and bounds, she wasn't the kind of person who cultivated all day long. She spent a lot of time on her hobbies. Her cultivation time was shorter than others, but her cultivation speed was many times faster than others. Perhaps this was the power of talent. At this moment, the Lord of Western Capital, Qin Mengli's carriage entered the Heavenly Awakening Academy and came to the editing room of the Heavenly Awakening Academy's newspaper. "Greetings, madam." When all the students saw Qin Mengli, they put down what they were doing and stood up to greet her. As the wife of Yang Dingtian, the Lord of Western Capital wasn't mysterious at all in front of the students of the Heavenly Awakening Academy. Basically, they would see her many times every month. Moreover, most of the resources in the Heavenly Awakening Academy were personally allocated by Qin Mengli. Therefore, regardless of whether it was the students or the teachers, they were very close and respectful to Qin Mengli. "Hello everyone. Please continue." Qin Mengli smiled. Then she waved at Ling Tu and said, "Tuer, come here." Ling Tu, finished the last stroke and came to Qin Mengli. She said, "Sister." Every time Qin Mengli saw Ling Tu, she would praise the magic of the Creator. The face in front of her was really exquisite. It was as if all the spiritual and delicate aura in the world had gathered on her. In terms of the exquisite and delicate facial features, Even Yin Yan couldn't be compared to Ling Tu'er. Of course, Yin Yan was also charming and gorgeous while Ling Tu'er was purely exquisite. It was as if she was carved out of jade. It was the kind of exquisiteness that couldn't be reduced by a single bit. "Make a trip home with me," Qin Mengli said. "He's here." Ling Tu's little heart suddenly jumped. Immediately, her exquisite and peerless face flushed with a moving blush. This he was, of course, referring to Yang Dingtian. Although she was Yang Dingtian's wife in name, she had only met him once. In her heart, Yang Dingtian was her savior who had rescued her from the sea of bitterness. Moreover, he was very gentle and tolerant towards her. However, there was only gratitude in her heart. She didn't have any romantic feelings at all. After leaving Zhongjing and arriving at the Heavenly Awakening Academy, she could clearly feel the fanatical worship everyone had for Yang Dingtian. Then, from the words of others, she understood the various things that Yang Dingtian had done and the various miracles that he had created. Without him, the West continent wouldn't have been unified. Countless slaves wouldn't have been liberated. Countless serfs wouldn't have been able to own their own land. Even countless academies wouldn't have had the opportunity to study. The most direct thing was that the Heavenly Awakening Academy wouldn't have existed. Here, all the disciples had the same thought in their minds. That was the arrival of the world-ending war. Everyone was waiting for the arrival of the world-ending war. Protecting the chaotic world, and the Tiando League, was the highest mission of the Heavenly Awakening Academy. Throughout the entire teaching process, there was nothing about loyalty to Yang Dingtian. However, almost all the students were instinctively loyal to sect leader Yang Dingtian. Moreover, this wasn't the old-fashioned kind of loyalty. It wasn't loyalty to Yang Dingtian as a person. It was loyalty to his mission and his ideals. In such an atmosphere, Ling Tu's state of mind was of course greatly affected. She also began to worship Yang Dingtian and began to accept the theories of the Heavenly Awakening Academy. She began to devote herself to the great cause of protecting the chaotic world and the Tiando League. And in this fanatical worship, she was one of Yang Dingtian's wives in name. Although no one knew this, a strange feeling still accumulated in her heart little by little. She enjoyed this very much. The hero that everyone looked up to was her husband. Although no one knew this, it didn't stop her from secretly rejoicing and feeling proud. Compared to the rotten and dark Vulture Palace, the Heavenly Awakening Academy was a complete paradise. In the 1 year of studying in the Heavenly Awakening Academy, Yang Dingtian had never come to see her even once. However, she wasn't unhappy at all. She even felt very happy and free. This was a very strange feeling. Although she had experienced a lot, she was still a girl after all. She usually had such lovely feelings in her heart. "I like you, but this has nothing to do with you." Therefore, although she liked Yang Dingtian, she didn't care whether Yang Dingtian came to see her or not. Now that she heard that Yang Dingtian had come, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Other than anticipation, she was more nervous. Therefore, when she sat in Qin Mengli's carriage to the city lord's residence, Ling Tu's face became redder and redder. Her heart beat faster and faster. In the end, it was as if blood was about to drip out. She almost wanted to jump off the carriage and not see Yang Dingtian. When they arrived outside a room in the city lord's residence, Qin Mengli said, "Rabbit, go in alone." Ling Tu pleaded, "Sister, come in with me." Qin Mengli smiled. "Good Rabbit, go in by yourself. You just have to remember that I hope to be with you forever and become a family, okay?" Ling Tu was stunned and then nodded vigorously. After Qin Mengli left, Ling Tu took a deep breath and gently pushed open the door and walked in. After entering, she mustered up a lot of courage and raised her head to look at her husband in name, the hero that she worshipped in her heart. However, other than Yang Dingtian, she also saw another unfamiliar, yet somewhat familiar person. Although this person was older than Yang Dingtian, he was much more handsome, and his temperament was also much more elegant and profound. "Rabbit, I missed you so much, I missed you so much. My little rabbit." Wu Daozi suddenly rushed forward and hugged Ling Tu in his arms. Ling Tu was shocked and said in disbelief, You are grandfather?" Wu Daozi's face was full of tears and he said in a trembling voice, "Yes, yes, I am grandfather, I am grandfather." Ling Tu looked at Wu Daozi's face and sniffed his aura desperately. Finally, from his eyes and the outline of his face, she finally confirmed that this was her grandfather. The grandfather that was originally old and withered like a dead tree. "Grandfather!" Ling Tu immediately cried out emotionally, and then hugged Wu Daozi's body tightly. The grandfather and grandson pair cried for a full 15 minutes. Wu Daozi let go of Ling Tu and looked up and down as if looking at a supreme treasure, looking at Ling Tu over and over again. This was his only family member, his most precious treasure in this world. Now she had become so beautiful and so happy. Wu Daozi's entire heart trembled as he looked at his granddaughter's exquisite face. He felt as if his heart was about to melt. "Grandfather, you've recovered?" Ling Tu looked at her grandfather's face and asked in surprise. "Yes, grandfather has recovered," Wu Daozi said. "Not only has grandfather recovered, but he has also become very, very powerful. No one can bully my little rabbit in the future. Grandpa wants to give all the best things in this world to my little rabbit. I want my little rabbit to become the happiest little princess in this world." Ling Tu couldn't help but cry again. "Grandfather, you have always given me the best. I was already the happiest granddaughter in this world." Ling Tu knew very well that the best thing in this world was the love and care of her family. She would never lose sight of this point. Wu Daozi cried, "No, no, grandfather couldn't protect you before, but from today onwards grandfather can protect you. Today grandfather is here to take you home, to our home." Ling Tu was stunned. "Home? What home?" Wu Daozi said, "Of course, the Vulture Palace. Now the Vulture Palace is our home." Ling Tu's exquisite little face trembled, and she shook her head. "No, the Vulture Palace is not our home." "It already is," Wu Daozi said. "Soon, the Vulture Palace will be grandfather's, and in the future, it will also be yours. Now, no one in the Vulture Palace dares to bully Ling Tu, and the Vulture won't dare to either. From now on, you are the princess of the Vulture Palace." Ling Tu's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of confusion, and then she looked at Yang Dingtian. Then I'm already married," Wu Daozi said. "When I married you to Sect Master Yang Dingtian, it was to protect you and let you leave the Vulture Palace. But now Sect Master Yang Dingtian is willing to divorce, and is willing to give you freedom, so grandfather wants to take you home." Ling Tu's delicate body trembled, and she looked at Yang Dingtian. "Divorce? Sect Master Yang, you want to divorce me?" Yang Dingtian said softly, "No, everything is your freedom. If you want to stay, then you can stay. If you want to leave and follow your grandfather back to the Vulture Palace, I won't stop you. Everything will follow your will." Ling Tu suddenly fell into a complicated mood. She hated the Vulture Palace. She loved the Heavenly Enlightenment Academy very, very much. Every inch of air here was beautiful. Everyone here loved her and took care of her. She worshipped Yang Dingtian and was secretly happy because she was his little wife in name. Therefore, she really wanted to stay in the Council of Light and the Heavenly Enlightenment Academy. However, her grandfather was the closest person to her in this world. He was her only family member and the person she loved the most. Now she had to make a choice. No matter which choice she made, it was a kind of cruelty. She slowly closed her eyes and tried to calm down, no matter what she told herself. Tu-er, you have to calm down and think about it carefully. Think about this matter clearly." Gradually, she calmed down and became clear. Then she understood. She was already married, so she should follow her husband. She couldn't betray her marriage just because her grandfather had become stronger. She couldn't go back with her grandfather just because she could become the princess of the Vulture Palace. Although in her heart, her grandfather's weight was definitely higher than Yang Dingtian's. But more importantly, it was right or wrong. If she went with her grandfather, then it was wrong. If she stayed, then it was right. And even if she stayed, she wouldn't lose her grandfather. A married girl could still go back to her family. She could go back to the Vulture Palace to see her grandfather. Therefore Ling Tu decided, "Grandfather, I want to stay," Ling Tu said to Wu Daozi. Chapter 785. After hearing Spirit Rabbit's words, Wu Daozi trembled, and his expression changed. Rabbit, you don't want Grandpa anymore? Spirit Rabbit said. Grandpa, if I stay here, you will still be my grandpa. This will not change. If I leave with you, then I will have nothing to do with Sect Master Yang. This is a kind of betrayal. What betrayal? Wu Daozi said. Your relationship as husband and wife is not in name at all. Yang Dingtian has never touched you. Spirit Rabbit said. But after all, we are married, although there is no ceremony. And at that time, in order to escape from the sea of bitterness, I, an ugly girl, married Sect Master Yang. Now that I have become beautiful and Grandpa has become powerful, I have to break off the marriage and return to the Vulture Palace. I can't do it, Grandpa, this is wrong. Wu Daozi said angrily. What is wrong? Only children can tell right from wrong. Have you been brainwashed in the Heavenly Enlightenment Academy? Under her grandfather's rage, the rabbit became quieter and quieter. Her eyes became gentle. She said, Grandpa, if I stay here, I'll still be your granddaughter. You'll still be the person closest to me. Wu Daozi said angrily. Rabbit, let me ask you one question. In your heart, is Grandpa more important or Yang Dingtian more important? Spirit Rabbit said. Of course it's Grandpa who is more important. Although the people of Heavenly Enlightenment Academy are very good to me, Sect Master Yang and everyone else, including Aunt Bai, can't compare to Grandpa in my heart. Wu Daozi's expression calmed down a little, and he said tenderly, Well, in that case, you come home with me. Spirit Rabbit said, Grandpa, although you are the most important in my heart, I still have to tell the truth. But I still have to distinguish between right and wrong. It was wrong for me to go with you, but it was right for me to stay. So I will not go. After saying that, Spirit Rabbit looked at Wu Daozi. Her face was still calm, and her beautiful big eyes were still full of gentleness, but they were incomparably firm. Wu Daozi took a deep breath. He knew that he would definitely not be able to persuade his precious granddaughter. There is one kind of person in the world who is the most difficult to persuade, and that is the person who says a certain point of view quietly and without anger. Gentle and firm people were the ones with the most willpower. At this time, Yang Dingtian couldn't help but gasp in amazement at the exquisite girl in front of him. Her personality was as lovely as her beauty. After a long time, Wu Daozi said in a trembling voice, Girl, Grandpa is now completely loyal to the Temple of Annihilation. But you're married to the leader of the Tiando League. How will His Majesty the Demon King and the temple view your grandfather? If you don't cut ties with Yang Dingtian, they will never trust Grandpa. The Spirit Rabbit's little face trembled, and she said, Grandpa, I don't want to talk to you about justice and evil. Between Grandpa and justice, I choose Grandpa. I can't do things like placing righteousness before family, but I know that the Temple of 10,000 Bloods Temple Master, Dugu Xiao, is the most valued leader of the Temple of Annihilation. His daughter, Dugu Fengwu, is Sect Master Yang's wife, and his grandson, Yangli, is Sect Master Yang's son. Therefore, you don't have to worry about this. My existence won't affect your standpoint, and I don't have enough wisdom to affect your standpoint now. Wu Daozi's face twitched, and tears fell down again. He looked at the Spirit Rabbit for a long time, and knew that there was no way to change his granddaughter's will. He took a deep breath and sobbed, Okay. Afterward, Wu Daozi walked out and instantly disappeared from the City Lord Manor. Seeing her grandpa crying so sadly, the Spirit Rabbit's heart ached. After Wu Daozi left, she threw herself into Yang Dingtian's arms and cried out loudly. Hugging her fragrant and delicate body, Yang Dingtian patted her back gently and allowed her to cry. After crying for a full 15 minutes, the Spirit Rabbit raised her delicate little face. Her big eyes were red and swollen from crying. Sect Master, do you think I'm an unfilial granddaughter? The Spirit Rabbit asked Yang Dingtian while crying. No, Yang Dingtian said. The Spirit Rabbit cried again and said, 2 days ago, Mentor Ning said that the Yinyang School's disciple Lung Ao had betrayed us and accepted Princess Mu Dan's second-grade evil spirit. He had become a puppet of the Temple of Annihilation. At that time, I was worried that Princess Mudan would look for Grandpa. In the end, she really went to look for him. The Heavenly Revelations Academy's education was so in-depth. Lung Ao had betrayed the Tiando League after obtaining a second-grade evil spirit. This kind of top secret would be made public in the Heavenly Revelations Academy. The Heavenly Revelations Academy had always had a motto. There was nothing that couldn't be told to others. There were many facts that were not whitewashed, hidden, or concealed. Only in this way could the disciples of the Heavenly Revelations Academy truly integrate into the great cause of the Tiando League. Only then would they have a true sense of ownership. The spirit rabbit widened her eyes and said, "Sect Master, I clearly know that Grandpa recovered his cultivation because of the evil spirit and became very powerful. Good and evil cannot coexist. I should have placed righteousness before family and hate Grandpa, but I can't do it. So am I a disloyal person?" "No, you're not." Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "No justice can be done at the cost of sacrificing family ties. Otherwise, that kind of justice can't be called justice. Perhaps one day, your grandpa and I will be irreconcilable and fight to the death, but I will never let you be your grandpa's enemy." "Yes." The spirit rabbit nodded vigorously, and then quietly buried herself in Yang Dingtian's arms. She didn't make a sound, and enjoyed the quiet peace. "Sect Master, I want to take 2 days off tomorrow, and go to Cloud Sky City to see Yang Li, Yang Yi, and the other babies. Is that okay?" The spirit rabbit suddenly asked. Yang Dingtian obviously knew her thoughts. She felt that the bond between her and Yang Dingtian was too weak, so she tried her best to integrate into Yang Dingtian's family. This way, her reason to stay in the Council of Light would be more sufficient. "Okay," Yang Dingtian said, "but I might not have time to accompany you. It's better if I go alone. If you accompany me, I will feel very unnatural," the spirit rabbit said softly. Then, she left Yang Dingtian's arms and said, "Sect Master, then I have to go back to school. I haven't finished today's mission." Yang Dingtian was stunned and said, "Tonight you should sleep with Sister Mengli. You're not at peace now, so it's better to stay by her side." The spirit rabbit wiped her tears and said, "It's because I'm not at peace that I'm working for the academy. Also, Sister Mengli has been thinking about you for a long time." After saying this, her little face instantly turned red, like a big red cloth. Yang Dingtian understood. Qin Mengli must have said a lot of crazy things to her. Today, Yang Dingtian finally got to know that she wasn't willing to be a third wheel and delay his and Qin Mengli's romantic night. Then okay. Yang Dingtian looked very awkward after being stared at by her big eyes. Then I'm leaving." The spirit rabbit suddenly went forward, pouted her soft jelly-like mouth, and kissed Yang Dingtian's face. Then, she flew away like a bird. At night, the city lord of Western capital, Qin Mengli, finally got what she wanted. She felt that her whole body was about to melt as she laid lazily in Yang Dingtian's arms. "Husband rabbit is cute, right?" Qin Mengli said in a hoarse voice. "Yes," Yang Dingtian said. Qin Mengli said, "I really love her to the core. I've never seen such a gentle and spirited girl. Anyone who sees her will feel like their heart is about to melt. The key is that the years of suffering in the Vulture Palace didn't cause any darkness in her heart. How can there be such a girl? Every time she looks at me with her big eyes, I feel inferior. I feel that I'm not worthy of you. I was so dirty in the past." Towards the end, Qin Mengli was already sobbing. Yang Dingtian didn't console her. Instead, he gave her a loud slap on her waist. "Husband, Wu Daozi will definitely not let this go," Qin Mengli said. "He will definitely take revenge. You can't be a coward. You can't give the spirit rabbit away just because you feel pressured." Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "He won't. If she doesn't want to leave, then no one can take her away. I've never sacrificed a woman in exchange for the enemy's concession." 4 hours later, Yang Dingtian received accurate information. Wu Daozi was heading towards the northwest. His destination should be the Snakeman Empire. Yang Dingtian was puzzled. Why was Wu Daozi going to the Snakeman Empire? Then he thought of a possibility. At that time, In order to force young Dingtian to compromise, Queen Hai Xan had gone to the Vulture Palace. Clearly, she wanted to make use of Wulingzi to attack young Dingtian. However, Wulingzi might have rejected her, because this old man was basically a coward. Now, he wasn't willing to take the initiative to provoke young Dingtian. Wu Daozi's return of the king in the Vulture Palace was obviously a piece of information from the people in the Vulture Palace. He knew about the conflict between Hai Xian and young Dingtian. In that case, he and Queen Hai Xian had a common goal. They hit it off and joined forces to deal with young Dingtian, forcing him to compromise. Then, which weak spot of young Dingtian would Wu Daozi and Queen Hai Xian attack? Kill the core executives of the Council of Light? Impossible. Without the Demon King's orders, no one would dare to do so. Even Mu Dan wouldn't dare. Destroy young Dingtian's secret weapons base? This was also a strategic action. It was definitely not something Wu Daozi could decide. Touching young Dingtian's wife and family was even more impossible. So far, this was considered an iron bar. The other party's Princess Mu Dan's body was young Dingtian's wife. Other than that lunatic Dongli, no one in the evil ways dared to touch young Dingtian's family. Then there was only one weak spot left. The Taboo Continent's Skull Hall. The core executives of the Council of Light were cultivating in the Taboo Continent. This was no secret to the top executives of the evil ways. The reason why young Dingtian let Wu Yuming guard the entrance was to prevent Queen Hai Xian from destroying it. Wulingzi basically didn't leave the Vulture Palace. Because Wu Yuming was also a half-saint, neither Queen Hai Xian nor Wu Daozi could break into the hall alone and destroy it. But the two of them could do it together. That's right, their attack direction must be there. Because that place was young Dingtian's biggest weak spot. Half of the entire Council of Light's upper echelons were cultivating there, including Yang Dingtian's wife, his master, Dishi Bian, Song Chunhua and so on. After Hai Xian and Wu Daozi broke into the Skull Hall, they didn't even need to do anything. They just used Xianqi energy and mental strength to interfere with these people's cultivation. The consequences were unimaginable. Either they would go berserk, or be completely lost in the illusion. If it was really destroyed, at least half of the upper echelons would be crippled, or even worse. Even if one of the people cultivating there died, it would be a pain that young Dingtian couldn't bear. Yes, it must be like this. Wu Daozi must have gone to find Queen Hai Xian. The two of them would work together to break into the Skull Hall, destroy the upper echelons of the Council of Light, and force young Dingtian to compromise. Then, would Queen Hai Xian agree to Wu Daozi's request? She definitely would. She might even be impatient. He must stop it, he must stop it. Otherwise, the losses caused would be unbearable for young Dingtian. Then, how to stop it? Would Hai Xian come alone? Or would she bring the masters of the Naga Empire with her? Although Ning Busi and Qin Wancho were guarding, they couldn't be called in for this battle. The disparity in strength was too great. It could be said that in this conflict, only a 9-star Great Grandmaster was barely qualified to enter. And in the entire Tiando League, there was only one 9-star Great Grandmaster, Yang Dingtian. And if Yang Dingtian and Wu Yuming worked together, would they be able to stop Wu Daozi and Queen Hai Xian? They probably wouldn't be able to stop them. Or rather, they wouldn't be able to stop them at all. The gap between a half-saint and a 9-star Great Grandmaster was huge. Furthermore, Yang Dingtian didn't have any changes to the half-saint realm. He didn't know what was the difference between half-saints. If he wanted to stop Hai Xian and Wu Daozi, he would have to find a half-saint helper. At present, in the entire human kingdom, besides Princess Mu Dan, only Wulingzi was a half-saint. That's right, Wulingzi. This cowardly old man must hate Wu Daozi to the core. Although he and Yang Dingtian were enemies, the conflict between him and Yang Dingtian was secondary. The conflict between him and Wu Daozi was the main conflict, because Wu Daozi was coming to steal his Vulture Palace. That's right, join forces with Wulingzi. If they succeeded, Yang Dingtian would have 2 half-saints and a 9-star Great Grandmaster on his side. Then, he wouldn't have to fear Wu Daozi and Queen Hai Xian at all. There was no time to lose. Yang Dingtian didn't ride the Demon Eagle anymore. He used the Demon Spirit Mist Cloak and his flying mystic skill to rush to the Vulture Palace at the fastest speed. He wanted to join forces with Wulingzi and defeat Wulingzi and Hyexan. After a few hours, Yang Dingtian arrived in the sky above the southern barbarian continent and met the patrolling black vultures of the Vulture Palace. When they saw Yang Dingtian, the patrolling black vulture knights of the Vulture Palace were aggressive and wanted to kill him. But when they saw Yang Dingtian, their expressions changed dramatically and they trembled. They didn't know whether to turn around and flee, or bow down and accept death. The people of the Vulture Palace were traumatized by Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian said, "Quickly enter the Vulture Palace and report that the leader of the Taiando League, Yang Dingtian, wants to meet with Wulingzi to discuss something." Yes. After the patrolling winged cavalry heard this, they immediately flew back to the Vulture Palace with all their might. Chapter 786. 2 hours later, Yang Dingtian saw the vulture. It was almost a year later when he saw the vulture again. She seemed to have matured a lot. At this time, she no longer looked like a little girl, but a beautiful woman. Her facial features were originally very delicate, but compared to the exquisite and peerless spirit rabbit, the difference was obvious. Moreover, the vulture's face was a little more gorgeous at this time. Of course, perhaps it was natural, she was still very flat, only slightly better than before. In the words of Earth, she was still in a cup, but her figure seemed to be a lot more voluptuous. I didn't expect that Lord Yang would take the initiative to visit the Vulture Palace one day. The vulture said with half sarcasm, "What's the matter? Say it." Yang Dingtian said, "You can't make the decision. I'll talk to your great-grandfather." The vulture said, "Just say it." Yang Dingtian was like a repeater saying, "You can't make the decision. I'll talk to your great-grandfather." The vulture's face darkened, and then said, "Well, you can talk to my great-grandfather. But do you have the guts to enter the Vulture Palace in person?" Yang Dingtian curled his lips. Was he afraid of entering the Vulture Palace? Without saying anything, Yang Dingtian flew directly to the Vulture Palace. After passing through the Fog Formation and the Black Vulture Formation, Yang Dingtian arrived at the Vulture Palace. At first glance, he noticed the deep crack on the ground of the Vulture Palace and the disappearance of a whole mountain. Is this the mark left by Wu Daozi when he broke through to the semi-saint realm? Yang Dingtian asked. The vulture's face trembled, and he was unwilling to express any opinion on this matter. Wulingzi was the one who was most affected by this matter, and the vulture was next. Although no one had publicly supported Wulingzi, no one dared to say anything bad about Wulingzi, but from the eyes and expressions of the people in the Vulture Palace, the vulture felt something was wrong, and some people had begun to alienate him. Still in the thatched hut on the top of the mountain, Yang Dingtian saw the sage-like Wulingzi. At this time, Wulingzi still had white hair and a youthful face, but he seemed to have aged a lot since the last time Yang Dingtian saw him. Seeing Yang Dingtian, Wulingzi's face turned cold, and he said, "Lord Yang still dare to come? Are you not afraid of coming back?" Yang Dingtian was at the top of Wulingzi's list of people he hated the most. Nearly a year ago, Wulingzi was repeatedly slapped in the face by Yang Dingtian. He lost tens of thousands of black vultures, and was forced to give away the spirit rabbit in exchange for Yang Dingtian's ceasefire. Now that he saw Yang Dingtian, Wulingzi really had a kind of evil feeling, and he wanted to tear the person in front of him into pieces. Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "Senior Wulingzi, if I were you, I would never make these meaningless threats. You should know that no one in the entire human country dares to kill me. And of course, they may not be able to kill me." "Is that so?" Wulingzi said coldly. "Do you want to try?" Suddenly, an incomparably powerful force enveloped the entire mountain peak, making it almost impossible to breathe. If one didn't know Wulingzi well, they would probably be scared out of their wits at this time. However, Yang Dingtian had a very absurd feeling. This person in front of him was tough on the outside, but weak on the inside. Yang Dingtian had never seen anything like this before. Okay. Yang Dingtian said. We'll talk when you're done showing off. Wulingzi's expression changed, and he immediately felt extremely angry and indignant. Although he was no longer the core of the evil ways, he also knew that with the complete failure of Netherworld and Dongli, Yang Dingtian had regained the no-kill order. He, Wulingzi, did not have the guts to disobey the orders of the Demon King. However, it was even more embarrassing to let things go just like that. At this time, Yang Dingtian should have pretended to apologize, and Wulingzi would have also stepped down. However, not only did Yang Dingtian not apologize, but he even mocked him. After an hour of awkward silence, Wulingzi finally couldn't help but ask, "You, what's the matter?" Yang Dingtian said, "Your Excellency Wulingzi, originally, the conflict between you and me was irreconcilable. However, recently, Wu Daozi obtained a second-class evil spirit and broke through to the half-saint realm. Then, the conflict between you and me has become a secondary conflict. You and Wu Daozi have become the main conflict, haven't you? To put it more directly, it's a conflict of life and death." "Is that so?" Wulingzi said. "It can't be." Yang Dingtian said with a smile, "Senior Wulingzi, are you deceiving others or yourself by saying such words? If you were Wu Daozi, would you let go of this blood feud? Would you be able to let go of this Vulture Palace? You have no choice. He will definitely kill you and take away the Vulture Palace." Suddenly, Wulingzi's expression suddenly changed, and he wished he could cover his ears and not listen. "Yesterday, Wu Daozi came to me and wanted to bring the spirit rabbit back to the Vulture Palace, but I refused," Yang Dingtian said. "So he flew into a rage out of humiliation and wanted to join forces with Queen Hai Xian to deal with me. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Let's cooperate once, each take what he needs, and destroy Wu Daozi. How about it?" Wulingzi's eyes suddenly lit up. Vulture said from the side, "You don't want the spirit rabbit to come back?" Yang Dingtian said, "No, I'm giving the choice to the spirit rabbit. She said she wants to stay, so no one can take her away." Vulture's expression became extremely complicated, and said, You're going to fall out with a half-saint expert for a mere spirit rabbit." "Yes," Yang Dingtian said. Vulture's face suddenly became bitter, and then it became resentful and said, Why? What does the spirit rabbit count for? She's just an ugly and mute lowly servant. Why should she be treated like this? Why doesn't anyone treat me like this? Why should that bastard Wu Yuming treat me like this?" Yang Dingtian narrowed his eyes and said, "What did Wu Yuming do to you? Although he doesn't love you that much, he has never let you down." Vulture said in a stern voice, "In the Ghost Hell region, he selfishly deprived me of the opportunity to obtain the Ghost Hell flame. Later on, he abandoned me without hesitation, and abandoned the entire Vulture Palace. The relationship between him and me is not as good as the relationship between you and the spirit rabbit. Why should he treat me like this?" Yang Dingtian said, "That's because you don't have enough weight in his heart. Now, he's willing to do anything for Ling Wu." Vulture's expression became even more resentful, and said, "Bastard couple. I knew this bastard couple. He's only worthy of a lowly woman like Ling Wu." Looking at Vulture's distorted face, Yang Dingtian lost interest in talking with her, and looked at Wulingzi and said, "Sir, what do you think? Because of the relationship between the Demon King and Mudan, you don't dare to do anything to Wu Daozi, but I do. After eliminating Wu Daozi, no one will snatch the Vulture Palace from you. How about it?" Wulingzi was very moved, but he was also very unwilling in his heart, and was very suspicious of Yang Dingtian. Would Yang Dingtian be so kind? It was impossible. Immediately Wulingzi sneered and said, "Yang Dingtian, do you think I'll be fooled? You're obviously colluding with Wu Daozi to kill me. Do you think I'll be fooled? Dream on." Yang Dingtian was startled, and was simply unable to understand Wulingzi's thoughts and said, "In order to force me to compromise, Wu Daozi has already gone to the Snake Men Empire to look for Queen Hai Xian. And now, the experts of my Council of Light are cultivating in the Forbidden Continent's illusory realm. Wu Daozi and Hai Xian are about to join hands to destroy the cultivation plan of the higher-ups of the Council of Light, and use this to force me to compromise. Walingzi sneered and said, "What kind of joke is this? Wu Daozi is a half-step sage rank expert. If he wants to destroy the cultivation plan of your Council of Light, why would he need to look for High Excient's help? Is there anyone in your Council of Light who's a match for him?" Yang Dingtian said, "Because the one guarding the entrance of the Forbidden Continent is Wu Yuming. He's already a half-step sage rank expert." "Wu Yuming?" Vulture said in horror. "That's impossible. You're his mortal enemy. How could he help you guard the entrance?" Yang Dingtian said, "Because Ling Jiu is also cultivating inside." Bastard couple, you'll die a horrible death," Vulture said angrily again. Walingzi laughed and said, "Yang Dingtian, stop acting. I know your conspiracy. You and Wu Daozi are conspiring to kill me. You want to help Wu Daozi ascend to the position of Vulture Palace Master. Don't think I don't know. You even said that you fell out with Wu Daozi because you wanted to keep the spirit rabbit. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Not to mention one spirit rabbit. Even if there were 10 or 100 of them, it wouldn't be worth it for you to fall out with a half-step sage rank expert. This is a conspiracy. This is definitely a conspiracy." Yang Dingtian was completely speechless. He was completely convinced. People were really different from each other. Walingzi's greed for life and his paranoia were really rare in the world. Moreover, this person was completely amenable to force but not persuasion. As long as someone came to him for help and cooperation, he would never agree. Because deep in his heart, he was unwilling to help anyone. Even if this matter was very beneficial to him, such a selfish and suspicious person really couldn't be described in words. Walingzi looked at Yang Dingtian. "You and the spirit rabbit are very loving? She has your child?" Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "No, we haven't done it yet." "Ha ha ha." Walingzi laughed and said, "This is a flaw. This is a flaw. You and the spirit rabbit have nothing to do with each other. Would you fall out with Wu Daozi for her? How is that possible? You and Wu Daozi are conspiring to kill me." Yang Dingtian gave up the idea of explaining at once. For the spirit rabbit, he didn't hesitate to fall out with the semi-sage and risk his life. This kind of thing was simply ridiculous in Walingzi's mind. Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian said, "If I really came to invite you to kill Wu Daozi, would you agree?" Walingzi was silent for a long time, shook his head and said, "No." Yang Dingtian was stunned and said, "Why? You and he are in a life and death struggle." Walingzi said, "His Majesty Demon King needs me. Wu Daozi may not dare to go against me, and he may not be able to snatch my Vulture Palace. He has his mission." Yang Dingtian was really amazed. This 200-year-old man in front of him was really a wonder in the world. He was fierce in appearance but weak in heart. He was selfish and afraid of death. The key point was that deep in his heart, he was so timid. Now that Wu Daozi had broken through to the semi-sage realm, he still had hopes that others wouldn't kill him and snatch his Vulture Palace. This kind of person was greedy and insidious, bullied the weak and feared the strong, but also cowardly and childish. Unless death was imminent, he wouldn't be willing to take risks. Of course, it was because he was such a person that Yang Dingtian had beaten him up in the Vulture Palace and forced Walingzi to compromise. It should be known that at that time, Yang Dingtian had no way to deal with the large-scale Black Vulture army. Moreover, his cultivation at that time was less than 1/10 of Walingzi's. At that time, as long as Walingzi ordered hundreds of thousands of Black Vultures to invade Zhongjing or the West Continent, it would bring a devastating blow to the Council of Light. Alternatively, Walingzi could kill his way into Zhongjing alone and bring a devastating blow to the Council of Light. But he didn't dare. He was scared out of his wits by Yang Dingtian's strategic blackmail. He was also afraid that Yang Dingtian would set a trap in Zhongjing to kill him. Therefore, he would rather humiliate himself and beg for peace in order to hide in the Vulture Palace in exchange for safety. Yang Dingtian looked at Walingzi and said, "Your Excellency, this may really be your last and only chance to eliminate Wu Daozi." Walingzi smiled confidently and said, "Yang Dingtian, stop acting and dreaming. Vulture, see the guest out." In this way, Yang Dingtian's trip to the Vulture Palace ended in failure. When he left, Yang Dingtian wanted to say something to Vulture, but in the end, he didn't say anything and flew to the west alone. Yang Dingtian firmly believed that the great changes in the Vulture Palace were definitely coming soon. Wu Daozi was now observing and preparing. Once the preparations were complete, he would kill Wu Lingzi with a thunderous force and take back the Vulture Palace. He was completely different from Wu Lingzi. He was much more decisive in killing. This could be seen from the fact that he decisively joined forces with Hai Xian to stab Yang Dingtian's weak spot when he couldn't take the spirit rabbit away. Joining forces with Wu Lingzi had failed. Of course, Yang Dingtian could have gone to Duge Shao. Although he wasn't a semi-sage yet, he was definitely infinitely close to it. As long as Yang Dingtian asked, Duge Shao would definitely agree. However, Yang Dingtian couldn't do that. Yes, Yang Dingtian had asked Duge Shao for help many times, but it was all to protect his family in Cloud Sky City. These were all private matters. And this time, protecting the heads of the higher-ups of the Council of Light in the main hall was absolutely official business. It was against the principles of the Tiando League to look for Duge Shao for official business. Therefore, Yang Dingtian couldn't find any helpers. Now his only choice was to go to the Taboo Continent Sea area alone and join forces with Wu Yuming to stop the two semi-sages, Hai Xian and Wu Daozi. Then could they succeed? Without a doubt, purely in terms of martial arts cultivation, Yang Dingtian and Wu Yuming were far inferior to Hai Xian and Wu Daozi. However, if it was to stop the other party, it might not be impossible to succeed. As long as Yang Dingtian was willing to risk his life and show the will to survive in the face of death, whether it was Hai Xian or Wu Daozi, they could only compromise, because they were here to force Yang Dingtian to retreat, not to risk their lives. After arriving in Shijing, Yang Dingtian rode on a demon eagle and flew towards the Taboo Continent Sea area. At the same time, Wu Daozi and Queen Hai Xian left the Snake People Empire and headed towards the Taboo Continent Sea area. This sudden showdown of top-level martial arts was about to break out at any moment. Chapter 787. When Yang Dingtian came to the entrance of the Taboo Continent, Wu Yuming avoided him immediately. In short, he absolutely did not want to meet Yang Dingtian. It was fine if they didn't meet before, but now they must meet. Yang Dingtian shouted at the entrance, "Brother Yuming, I know you don't want to see me, but our trouble is coming, so you'd better show yourself." There was no response. Yang Dingtian continued, "You know, after the duel, I beat the Vulture Palace badly, so the Vulture Palace was forced to use marriage in exchange for a ceasefire. Wu Lingzi betrothed Spirit Rabbit to me. I believe you know the identity of Spirit Rabbit, the last bloodline of the Vulture Palace, Wu Daozi's granddaughter. After marrying me, I let Spirit Rabbit go to the Heavenly Enlightenment Academy to study, and she was free from the sea of bitterness." Yang Dingtian said, "But I didn't expect that Princess Mudan would give a second-class evil spirit to Wu Daozi. Not only did he recover his cultivation, but he also broke through to the semi-saint realm. So he came to find me, hoping that I would divorce Spirit Rabbit and take her back to the Vulture Palace. I said that I would leave this decision to Spirit Rabbit, but she was unwilling to break the engagement and wanted to stay." Yang Dingtian took a breath and said, "Of course, Wu Daozi flew into a rage out of humiliation, so he went to the Snake People Empire to find Queen Hai Xian, because Queen Hai Xian also wanted to force me to compromise. The two hit it off and joined forces to deal with me, and at this time my weakness is in the Skull Hall. These two should be arriving soon, to attack the illusion of the Taboo Continent, destroy the cultivation of the people inside, and cause me unbearable losses." Yang Dingtian looked at the surrounding air and continued, "So I went to find Wu Lingzi to join forces to kill Wu Daozi, but he didn't dare to come, so now it's just the two of us. In that case, how about the two of us join forces to fight Hai Xian and Wu Daozi?" Of course, Yang Dingtian could have used a goading tactic. For example, "Wu Yuming, you should leave first and bring Ling Wu away. I, Yang Dingtian, will deal with Hai Xian and Wu Daozi by myself. However, Yang Dingtian was not so frivolous and superficial. After hearing Yang Dingtian's words, Wu Yoming's voice suddenly sounded. You and I both have the demonic spirit mist cloak. If it's a guerrilla fight, we don't have to fear these two people. They can't do anything to us while we fight. However, we are defending and cannot move. There's no way we can win this battle. Yang Dingtian. I know, and this weakness is mine. You've already broken through to the half-step sage realm. Although your cultivation isn't as high as Hai Xian's, it shouldn't be a problem for you to block her. As for me, I'm only a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster. It's probably very difficult for me to block a half-step sage. It's not very difficult. It's impossible, Wu Yuming said. Can you release that darkness profound flame of yours? Yang Dingtian. No. Unless we encounter the darkness profound flame, or something like the darkness crystal, it will remain dormant. Wu Yuming. Then how do you plan to fight? Yang Dingtian. I'll fight with my life on the line. These two people aren't trying to kill me, but to make me compromise. Therefore their fighting spirit isn't high. If I fight with my life on the line, I reckon they'll compromise. Wu Yuming was silent for a moment, and said, Is it worth it for a spirit rabbit? It's not for a spirit rabbit, but for a belief. Yang Dingtian. Wu Yuming. Alright, let's fight then. Alright, let's fight then. Yang Dingtian. Immediately Wu Yuming appeared. She stood side by side with Yang Dingtian, and blocked the entrance to the taboo continent's sea, that was several kilometers long. The two people floated in the air and sat cross-legged, waiting for the enemy's arrival. More than 4 hours later the enemy arrived. Two half-step sages, Wu Daozi and Queen Hai Xian. Seeing Yang Dingtian and Wu Yuming sitting side by side, Queen Hai Xian was stunned. She smiled and said, This is really interesting. You were fighting to the death before, but now you're fighting side by side. The two of you really appreciate each other. Wu Daozi bowed and said, Netherworld Highness, our target is only Yang Dingtian. As a subject of the evil Tao, I don't dare to go against you. Would you please step aside? Wu Yuming. My sister is cultivating inside. No one can disturb her. If you want to go, you'll have to step over my dead body. Wu Daozi's face twitched. He bowed and said, I dare not fight you. Then Wu Daozi's gaze fell on Yang Dingtian. Queen Hai Xian looked at Yang Dingtian. Little enemy, you're not my match. Compromise. Agree to my request, and we'll leave immediately. Yang Dingtian turned a deaf ear. Queen Hai Xian smiled and said, You might think that we're just forcing you to compromise, so we won't kill you. As long as you fight with your life, we'll compromise. But I have to say that once we fight, there's no mercy. As long as you don't die, no matter how tragic the consequences are, I'll ignore them. As long as we fight, you'll compromise just like me. Yang Dingtian said nothing. He stood up and pulled out his near-emperor-grade soul sword. He said to Wu Daozi, I've never tried a half-step sage before. Today I'll try it. Wu Yuming also stood up and pulled out a sharp sword like autumn water. Do it! Yang Dingtian shouted. Bang! A huge lightning bolt of several thousand meters slammed toward Wu Daozi. Wu Daozi stood in the air motionless, letting the huge lightning bolt of several thousand meters strike his body. Bang! With a loud bang, the gorgeous lightning instantly covered the light of the two suns. The light dissipated, and Wu Daozi's body was charred black. However, the charred black faded, and his body quickly returned to its previous ruddy, sage-like appearance. It was as if this terrible lightning didn't cause any harm to him. He stood motionless like this, and Yang Dingtian's devil sky-splitting lightning couldn't hurt him. Perhaps it was because of the evil spirit, or perhaps it was because of the half-step sage cultivation. In short, the result of this blow made Yang Dingtian suck in a breath of cold air. His devil sky-splitting lightning just now, even a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster couldn't withstand it. However, the other party actually stood motionless and was safe and sound. Could this be the power of a half-step sage? After the first move failed, Yang Dingtian stopped, bowed and said, It's your turn, Your Excellency. As soon as these words came out, Wu Daozi and Hai Xian's expressions changed. Yang Dingtian actually wanted to have a civil fight. Was he crazy? A 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster actually wanted to fight with a half-step sage. The so-called martial arts fight was both sides fighting with all their strength. Yang Dingtian had the devil spirit mist cloak and a soul sword close to emperor grade, so fighting with all his strength was a big advantage. And the martial arts fight was both sides standing still. You make a move, I make a move. This way it was purely a naked competition of cultivation. Wu Daozi said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, I'm standing still, not to fight, but to let you recognize the reality and compromise directly. It's a kind of contempt, right? Yang Dingtian asked. You can say so. Wu Daozi said. Yang Dingtian. Then since the martial arts fight has started, let's continue. You can do it. Wu Daozi's face turned cold, and he said, Sect Master Yang, although the temple has a no-kill order for you, there is no no-kill order for your cultivation. As long as you are alive, it's also okay to destroy your cultivation. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, Please. Wu Daozi said, Then for the first move, I will use the cultivation of a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster to attack you. Please get ready. Yang Dingtian stood with his sword, running his profound qi, waiting for Wu Daozi's attack. Wu Daozi slowly raised his sword, ran his profound qi, and then slashed over with the sword. Swish! A sword rainbow of tens of thousands of meters, so dazzling that it seemed to blind people's eyes, suddenly whistled toward Yang Dingtian. Boom! The 10,000-meter sword light slammed into Yang Dingtian's chest. The profound qi sword light of a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster slammed into the body. In an instant, almost endless profound qi energy madly attacked Yang Dingtian's profound veins. Crazy tearing, crazy strangling. Yang Dingtian's profound veins suffered unprecedented damage, as if they were about to break inch by inch. Puff! An arrow of blood spurted out dozens of meters away. In an instant, Yang Dingtian's body was completely pale like golden paper. After a little stagger, Yang Dingtian still stood in place motionless. The attack of a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster was only SO. Although it would injure Yang Dingtian, it would only injure him, and not be fatal. Yang Dingtian closed his eyes and gently adjusted his breathing, letting his profound veins and qi completely calm down. He rested for about half a quarter of an hour. Yang Dingtian slowly opened his eyes and said to Wu Daozi, Your Excellency, it's my turn. Please, Wu Daozi said. Yang Dingtian and Wu Daozi were fighting, and Wu Yuming and Hai Xian on the side were simply fighting. The two people, separated by tens of thousands of meters, quietly confronted each other, but no one made a move, because both sides knew that Hai Xian's cultivation surpassed Wu Yuming's, but it was still very, very difficult to break through him. Therefore, Hai Xian was preparing to decide the universe with one blow. Only one move, if successful, break through, if not, give up. Both sides had to concentrate all their energy and will, and could not relax or be distracted in the slightest. This was somewhat like a penalty kick in a football game, deciding the winner or loser in one game. Either stop or enter the door. Therefore, after the battle began, Wu Yuming and Hai Xian did not care about Yang Dingtian's battle situation at all. It was Yang Dingtian's turn to make the second move. The first move, Devil Sky Splitting Lightning, already ignored any defense, but it could not hurt the other party at all. Then the second move, what should Yang Dingtian do? He slowly raised his near-emperor grade soul sword and pointed it at Wu Daozi's chest. Wu Daozi slowly raised his sharp sword and blocked the tip of Yang Dingtian's sword. The second move was prediction. Yang Dingtian prepared a physical attack. Once he decided on the direction, he could not change it, because his devil spirit mist cloak appeared in front of Wu Daozi in an instant. There was no time to change his move. And Wu Daozi's prediction was the direction of Yang Dingtian's attack, and he had to use his sword to block Yang Dingtian's sword in advance. Once he made a mistake, he would be stabbed by Yang Dingtian, and he would not have time to change his sword move, because Yang Dingtian's speed would be extremely fast. It was impossible to wait for Yang Dingtian to make a move and then defend. Staring at the sword in his hand, and Wu Daozi, who was 10,000 meters away. He took a deep breath. Swoosh! Yang Dingtian attacked like lightning. In an instant, it was completely in an instant. This speed was even faster than lightning. And not even an afterimage was left behind. He directly appeared 10,000 meters away in an instant, directly in front of Wu Daozi. And his sword, completely drawing a straight line in space, instantly pierced into Wu Daozi's chest at a speed that was impossible to defend against. Clang! A crisp sound. The tip of Yang Dingtian's sword did not stab Wu Daozi's chest, but his blade, his bloody black gold sword. Wu Daozi's prediction was correct, and he directly blocked Yang Dingtian's sword. At the same time, an incomparably powerful profound qi energy surged out of Wu Daozi's blade, and then drilled into Yang Dingtian's near emperor-grade soul sword, and finally surged into Yang Dingtian's body. Still at the same time, Yang Dingtian's near emperor-grade soul sword, with the most direct physical attack, pierced Wu Daozi's bloody black gold sword from the middle. That's right, Wu Daozi's indestructible bloody black gold sword was actually pierced from the middle. None of the swords in the world could compare to Yang Dingtian's near emperor-grade soul sword in terms of sharpness. It was completely indestructible. Clang! After the treasured sword broke, Puchi, Yang Dingtian's sharp sword, suddenly pierced through Wu Daozi's chest, piercing his heart. Pa! Then, a burst of demonic lightning burst out from Yang Dingtian's body, along the near emperor-grade soul sword, and burst out violently. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.